To some longer spells of rain. There could be some downpours around, and do watch out for some gusty winds with a bit of a chilly feel to things as a result. Still a few showers continuing as we go through the end of the day across both Northern Ireland, Northern England, and into some central parts of England and Wales too. Towards the southeast, likely to stay largely fine as we go through the end of the day, but across southwestern parts we are going to see a bit more cloud feeding its way in and some rain arriving as we go overnight. Now this band of rain that pushes through across southern parts overnight could turn quite heavy at times as we head through the early hours of Friday morning. Further north there will be some clear skies around, but also some further showers at times, and temperatures generally holding up in double figures, though a few places will drop into single digits where we get any clear skies. So Friday then going to be a bit wet across some central southern parts. Bit of uncertainty as to exactly where this rain is going to be, but it could be wet for some. Further north, a similar day to today really in some extent. Plenty of showers around, limited bright or sunny spells. Perhaps the greatest chance of some sunshine will be across central areas. Where the cloud and rain lingers, it will feel a little bit unpleasant, but temperatures in the low 20s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Perth and Kinross, the A984 is closed each way between Meatclure and Cooper Angus because of water main work. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the outside lane's closed eastbound after an accident just after junction 24 at Ainley Top, causing delays. Mersey Ferry suspended because of a technical problem. Powys, the A483 is closed each way between Abermule and Garthmill because of a burst water main that causing queues each way. The traffic heading on the stretch between Welshpool and Newtown. On the M26 in Kent, along westbound delays approaching the M25 because of roadworks. Buses replaced trains between Lewis and Seaford because of a points failure. Trains on the Isle of Wight have been stopped between Ryde Pierhead and Shanklin because of a signalling problem. And in Cornwall, the A39 is closed each way on the marketplace in Camelford because of an unsafe building. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
Thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign, and thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War. Restoration of this really precious memorial. The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother, and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved ones.
The People's Channel.
Very good morning, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News from Paddington, and also here from Henley Regatta with me, Bev Turner, and Andrew Pearce in the studio. Andrew.
So, good morning to you. Joe Biden, the US president, insists he will stay on to fight the presidential race with backing from the White House. Despite calls from within his own party, he should step down. An Ozempic warning. A new study shows the weight loss jab could make you go blind and the risk for diabetics is even greater. The Murray brothers take centre court. Andy plays his emotional first match at Wimbledon alongside his brother Jamie later today. Will this be his final farewell to Wimbledon? And Henley Royal Regatta returns. One of the biggest events in the British sporting calendar, it's underway, and Bev is there with, amongst others, the greatest Olympian of all time, Sir Steve Redgrave, who will be on the show.
It's a different sort of Britain's newsroom this morning, but it's going to be superb between now and midday. First, though, the very latest news with Sophia.
Bev, thank you. It's 9:31. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Polls are open across Britain as millions of people cast their votes to choose the next government. The first voters were up bright and early as stations opened their doors at 7 o'clock this morning. They'll remain open until 10 o'clock tonight, giving a chance to around 46 million eligible voters to have their say on who forms Britain's next government. A total of 650 parliamentary constituencies are being contested across the UK, but this is the first general election to require photo ID, and voters are being reminded to bring their driver's licence, passport or other ID or risk being turned away. Forensic police in Tenerife are focusing their efforts on an Airbnb property where missing teenager Jay Slater reportedly stayed before he vanished. It comes after one of the last people to see the 18-year-old insisted he was alive and well when he left his holiday rental to catch a bus back to his own accommodation. Police have described the individual as irrelevant to the ongoing investigation. The search for Jay has now concluded, but police are continuing to look into his latest known movements and why he travelled to a location so far from his accommodation. Meanwhile, in the US, state governors who met with President Biden last night say he's fit for office and he has their backing. The president faced a grilling at the meeting of Democratic governors, which many saw as a test of his ongoing support within the party. Among those signalling their support was Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, who some see as an alternative for the Democratic ticket. But the united front among many of those in attendance unsettled some, with reports suggesting there was little effort to gauge the group's private degree of support for the president. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good morning, hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner. I'm in the studio in Paddington. Bev is, as somebody said earlier, she's on the drink, but not literally. She is in Henley because it's a big sporting day today, and she knows more about Henley than anybody. Bev, take it away. What's happening there?
Not yet on the drink, Andrew, but the day is young, and that's almost an obligatory part of this festival. There are Pimm's tents, champagne tents all along the river here. This side of the river is Oxfordshire this morning. And there we go, people giving us a wave there from the crowd. There will be 300,000 people attend this event between Tuesday and Sunday every year. We've got these beautiful residential houses here. In fact, one of those was the boathouse for George Harrison of the Beatles. He owns a big property, or he did, up in Henley. His wife is still there, and that was the boathouse for the house. Now, on this side of the river, if I can just ask our wonderful camerawoman to swing across, are all the tents. So those are the tents where the athletes put their boats. Those are the boating tents, and in there will be crews from all over the world, 27 countries, in fact, this year competing here at Henley Regatta. It generates a huge amount of income for the area every year. It's a fantastic tourist occasion, but it's also a very serious sporting event, actually, especially in an Olympic year like this, because this is where a lot of the crews will be working out their performances. There will be team coaches working out the boats and who should be in which particular seats. We're just coming up in a moment to Henley Bridge, but I want to talk to my skipper this morning, the very marvellous Ed China. You might know Ed. He's off the telly quite a lot, famous for wheeler dealers and tinkering around with cars, and quite a few world records as well, Ed. What are your world records?
Well, I have the world's fastest furniture. It was 87 miles an hour. I did on a sofa car. We've got the world's fastest bed, the bathroom, got the world's largest motorised shopping trolley, world's fastest desk, or driving desk. I mean, it kind of goes on. Maybe about 10 of them or so. Oh yeah, even the world's fastest all-electric ice cream van. So.
Amazing. I've been in your bed, Ed China. It is a road-worthy bed. It literally has a tax disc on the front of it. You went fairly sedate when I was in your bed at a music festival once. But how quick does it go, or did it go when you broke the world record?
World record at 69 miles an hour, but it can actually do about 80. Not on the private road, of course. It's the Queen's Road. King's Road, gosh.
Yeah, not out in the public. You've always done those world records, but you live here. People go, why is Ed China off Wheeler Dealers on Britain's Newsroom this morning? Now, of course, you're very lucky that you have a place literally on the river here in Henley.
Yes, no, it's pretty epic actually. And I think that's a really lovely thing, is you can just hop in a boat and just cruise down and just have a wonderful time. And I just love the there's a really amazing energy here. There's a lot of slightly crazy people, which is rather lovely, but there's always a lot of very fit people, and then there's the rest of us.
There are all sorts of vehicles here this morning. Yeah, good morning. I'm sure that's a GB News fan up there. We're just about to go under Henley Bridge here this morning. They start to put the tents out for this event weeks, if not months, ahead of time, don't they, Ed? It's a huge operation.
Absolutely. And basically, when the flooding stops, which generally is kind of around... Well, no, seriously, I mean, every year there'll be an unchangeable amount of water. And I guess probably about March or so, they start putting up all the marquees and things, and because it's a big old operation.
Yeah, it really is. We've got the Angel pub here, which sees a lot of action even on a normal weekend, but particularly on Henley weekend. You can also see there's some advertisements there, which is for the Henley Festival. So after the rowing event here at the regatta, there's actually an incredible music event. We've got Nicole Scherzinger on this year, Dave Stewart, Gladys Knight will be performing. And so what that means is that Henley itself makes use of a lot of the infrastructure which is put up for the regatta. They really make the most of all of the facilities which are here, and there's the huge music festival, as I say, as well. What does your regatta normally look like, Ed?
Well, there's a fair amount of madness. I mean, we're sort of nearer the lock, so obviously there's a lot of queuing of drunk people as they're trying to leave. But I think what's really lovely with the sort of the festival is kind of even more rambunctious, if you like. So there's sort of a lot more sort of boats going on. Of course, the stage is actually floating on the river. Well, it's not actually floating, but it's looking like it's actually right in the middle of the water. Yeah. And so that's actually quite cool, because then all the boats going backwards and forwards, listening to the music on both sides. And of course, then all the people who are actually watching the concert can see all the boat action. So that's quite lovely. Regatta is slightly more sedate, but of course, the place just gets filled up with people. I mean, it's amazing. There are so many people coming here, often in bad shoes. So you see them limping home at the end of the day, but also probably steady, on their feet because of the alcohol, of course.
Yeah. It's really kind of, Henley itself as a town has really seized this sort of mantle of being the home of festivals as well, because of course it famously has the literary festival here. Yep. I'm going to be talking to Harriet, who's the organiser of the literary festival, just a little while later in the programme. But that's another occasion. That's, I think, in the autumn largely here, isn't it? But that brings people to the town.
It really does, and I think that's really cool. There's a lot of kind of cultural excitement all the way through the year. I mean, I guess the season here kind of starts. I mean, it's obviously part of the official season, but it starts probably about Easter-ish, when everybody gets the boats out and stuff, and then of course you start having things like regatta, and then obviously festival, and then you've got obviously the rewind done in September as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on all the time, which is what makes it very exciting to be here, I guess.
Yeah, it really is. We're just tootling up the river now. Are we going north, south? Which way are we going now, Ed?
So we are going upstream, but we are kind of about to go round a bend, so we're going to end up, probably west.
Yeah. But let's just swing around. You can see this boat here. So Hobbs Boatyard has been in Henley on Thames for I don't know how many years. I mean, it must be many. Very, very 1800 and something.
I think so.
Is it really that old?
I think it's been here a long time. Well, if there's been boatyards here for a very, very long time. I mean, I think, I guess when you think about well, before all the locks were put in, which I guess then the water would have been possibly slightly lower. But I mean, you think like you've got Danesfield House just further downstream, and of course that's where the Vikings got to. So obviously they came up all this way with one of their sort of very, very clever sort of low sort of draft boats, if you like. So that's even before all the locks and everything. Obviously now the water's slightly higher and slightly more constant.
It's absolutely beautiful. So all of these boats this weekend, this week, we'll be taking people up and down. Some of them get hired out by corporate events. They're cleaning all the windows there, as you can see. And then you've just got all the little privately owned boats as well along the river. And it's so interesting, Henley Regatta, Ed, for me, because even though there are strict rules about accreditation for the actual regatta itself, for part of the way along the bank, anybody can go on the river, can't they? Anybody.
And you can walk all the way down. I mean, it's a long old way because it is the longest straight part of the Thames, and this is why the regatta's here in the first place, because obviously you needed a really long course to be able to have a race. So you can you're more than happy to, or more than welcome to walk all the way up and down, but it's a very long way.
I have done it at 2 o'clock in the morning. I do confess. Because further along the river, alongside all of the restaurants and the bars, there are then concessions, nightclub concessions, which do go on until the small hours. And we're going to take you up later in the show to show you some of the amazing facilities up there. Andrew, I think you would love it here. This has got you written all over it, sat here with a glass of champagne.
I must say, it does look very tempting. I went there, Bev, about 20 years ago when I was a much younger reporter working for a different newspaper, and it was great. And there are some very impressive sights to see, are there not?
Oh, there really are. There really are. And like I say, it's this really interesting kind of juxtaposition of athletes who are focused, who have been training like crazy for 4 years up into an Olympic Games on a year like this. They are so focused on what they're trying to do here this weekend. They want to get the best performance. Sometimes they want to do qualifying for their own international teams. And then you've got the socialisers who are very much in a different sort of mindset. But it's absolutely beautiful. I'm so lucky to be here this morning, Andrew. I was always going to say I wish you were here, but, you know, you've got to hold the fort there. You've got a very important job to do.
I don't think anybody would believe it if you said you wish I was there. Of course, you're going to be speaking to the greatest, the greatest Olympian of all time, I think, is joining you there, Bev, isn't he?
That's right. So Steve Redgrave, 5 Olympic gold medals from 5 different Olympics. I heard on Breakfast this morning there was a bit of debate about who the greatest athlete was of all time. Was it Sir Chris Hoy? Was it Sir Steve Redgrave? But I think the fact that he got those 5 golds over 20 years is particularly impressive. And actually what you'll find this morning, and Steve is one of them, a lot of the retired rowers actually work here as stewards. They work here in official capacity. They give back to their sport, actually, the sport that gave so much to them. So I'm going to be catching up with them a little bit later, and I think we're going to be talking as well in not long into some female crew members who've I think just been victorious at the finish line, so we will go and see how they're getting on as well.
Great stuff. That's Bev Turner. We'll hear lots more from her in Henley. And, of course, it is a politics-free day today because it is General Election Day. Up next, we're getting quite sporty. Quite unusual for me because Sir Andy Murray, no less, is taking centre stage at Wimbledon today with his brother Jamie in the doubles. But what I want to know is this really his farewell tour? Because a very famous tennis player, Novak Djokovic, seems to suggest it may not be. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Stay tuned.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said storm.
You made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight. Weekends from 9 p.m.
As he turns 80 next month, Thomas Markle gives a moving interview to the Mail newspaper saying, "I've never been one for birthdays, but I know the one person I most want to hear from, Meghan, will not be in touch. I'd love to meet my grandchildren," he said, "but I'd be happy with a photograph at this stage." Well, for reaction to this sad story, I'm delighted to welcome US political and royal commentator Hilary Fordwich.
He also added that he never thought that he'd have something in common with the King. And of course, the King doesn't know his grandchildren either. And I think that's a very sad state of affairs. What is very important, the important thread here, though, is the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy of Meghan Markle claiming to care about people and all the tours they go on where they have empathy for people, and yet her very own father. And also, Mark, it really happened so fast. In 2016, she posted on Instagram that her daddy was the greatest in the world. And the other thing is that she claimed that she had made everything herself and she came from a very poor family. Actually, she had a very privileged childhood, being sent to private schools in California.
Well, poor old Thomas Markle, as he approaches his 80th birthday, is a serious thorn in the side and, frankly, an ongoing embarrassment to the couple.
Yes, and I think that one of the things that's immensely sad is that, Meghan Markle wasn't happy to be number 2 to Princess Catherine, and now she ends up being really nothing. I do think that a tiger doesn't change its stripes. What we have to look at here is track record. Somebody who's dumped her friends, dumped her own family, dumped her country originally when she came over to the UK, and even her adopted dog. There is a track record there, and Thomas Markle has sadly said it's referred to now as being Markled when you're dumped.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hooray!
9:46 with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Andrew Pearce here in the studio. Bev Turner is in glorious, glorious Henley, where it is the fabled regatta. But it's a big day for sport. We're not doing politics because it is general election day today, because the great Sir Andy Murray will play alongside his brother Jamie in the men's doubles on centre court later today. He's not taking part in the singles because of problems with his back. So let's cross live to speak to our very own Olivia Utley. Olivia, I'm very jealous. Have you had any strawberries and cream yet, or is it too early?
Too early in the day for strawberries and cream, but I actually went to Wimbledon just for my own enjoyment on Tuesday and saw Djokovic play, which was very exciting after just 3.5 weeks after coming back from his knee surgery. Today is a huge day for British tennis. We're expecting to see Andy Murray play in the doubles with his brother Jamie, and it's thought that this might be his last match at Wimbledon. He's playing in the Paris Olympics later, which apparently will be the official end to his illustrious career. But also, actually, Novak Djokovic, in his speech, which I heard on Tuesday, suggested perhaps Andy Murray should come back next year for another go at the singles, which he's had to pull out of this year. But it's not just Andy Murray who's playing today. We also have Emma Raducanu, who obviously, after winning that US Open in 2021, I think it was, has really, really struggled with fitness and injury over the past few years. She came back with a bang yesterday. She defeated her Belgian opponent 6-2, 6-1 in just 75 minutes. It was a fantastic match to watch, apparently, and it looks like she's going to be back in the top 100 after being unseeded, or number 301, I think it was, in the world for quite a long time now. We also have British player Fernley playing Djokovic on centre court. That's starting in a few hours' time. So all in all, a really big, really exciting day for British tennis.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Olivia, keep us up to date. I'm very envious, because if I had to confess to a sport love, it is tennis. And the great sporting love, of course, of GB News is Paul.
Oh, we're going to be a view
who
there.
is in the studio now. Paul,
Olivia's outside. I think she's just by the queue. I don't know whether she's doing the queue, because you know you have to the queue, especially during the first week, whereas people will get there 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and then they get handed the queue ticket, and then they have to do it on the app. So there's about 500 tickets for centre court. So I don't know whether that's what she's doing now.
Right.
It seems like she's in the queue there.
You don't queue.
Well, of course I don't. No.
You know everyone.
Well, just stroll in.
But it's a big. Look, it's big. We had a great victory for Raducanu. We love all that. And Murray, it'd be very emotional when he comes on. Will he play on the centre court with his brother?
He is.
Right.
See, this is unprecedented for Wimbledon, especially because the doubles always will take backseat to the singles matches, especially during the first week, because this is when there's all the big names. So the fact that Andy was supposed to play on Tuesday, and then with this cyst that he's had on his back, and he left it right to the last minute, and they're like, Olivia, I was there on Tuesday, and I thought, this is great, I'm going to be able to see Andy play, and then the new Andy Murray, Jack Draper, ended up taking his place on centre court for the last game of the day. But it's because Andy, the problem is, where the cyst is, it's affected his leg. So one leg doesn't seem to have the power of the other leg. So it's almost going to be now, he's going to be playing in the doubles with his brother Jamie, where there's going to be like a three-legged race, and they tie themselves together. So it's like, Jamie, you go over that side and I'll go over this side. But obviously they have to swap over. But it will be extremely emotional, because although Djokovic did say, and we mentioned that, and I know that Olivia said that as well in the interview, about, oh, well, I'm sure he'll be back. The truth is, this is Andy's last Wimbledon.
And they put him on the centre court because he's British, because he's our very own Wimbledon
he's Andy
champion.
Murray.
He's Andy Murray, because the doubles would normally be on
outside court.
Yeah. Have they got any prospect of winning the Murray brothers? Because Jamie is an accomplished doubles player.
He is an accomplished doubles player, but when they've played together, I think they're actually unbeaten in the Davis Cup. They've been extremely successful playing together in the Davis Cup. But it seems to be almost like fate has lent a hand, whereas Jamie's usual doubles partner wasn't playing in this, and then Jamie was looking for someone. It's like, who could I have to play with me? I know my brother's quite good, so maybe we could get him involved. But then also, Andy is playing in the mixed doubles alongside Emma Raducanu, which is just a match made in heaven, that one.
Doesn't that have a sort of air of a gimmick about it?
I think it has the air of a gimmick about it because it seems that it's our two headline makers when it comes to tennis. I say the two greatest tennis players there are in the country, which is not the case anymore, but two great players. Of course, we've got Emma, who was brilliant yesterday. She plays again on Friday, and US Open winner, and then we know what happened with her career, but things are looking better for her.
Right.
So I think this is going to be more of a thing that's going to be enjoyed by them, and the crowd are going to love it. I think gimmick's a little far, but who knows how far they can go.
And just tell me what happened in the Tour de France.
Now Mark Cavendish. Now, you're familiar with Mark Cavendish. Sir Mark Cavendish, he is, up till yesterday, the joint greatest sprinter there's been in the Tour de France, along with the great Eddie Merckx. 34 stage wins. Now, he was going for 35. I could give you the whole backstory on Mark Cavendish, which would take forever. It's been a situation where he's had a fight against adversity. He's had illness, depression, injuries. He's had terrible injuries. He came off the bike. For example, last year, he was expected that this is going to be one where he's going to go for this 35th stage win. So last year, it didn't happen because he had a horrendous accident, and it seemed that at the age of 39, then it's going to be over. Now, Phil Liggett, who is the renowned commentator on the Tour de France. He's done over 52 of them in the past. We spoke to him in breakfast this morning, and he'd even said, I just don't think, as much as he loves Mark Cavendish, didn't think it was going to be possible. But then in the stage yesterday, fifth stage, he came through and won this stage, and it was the most emotional moment, and he is another one that I'm putting forward as the greatest sportsman we've ever had.
That's a big debate for another time, because is it Sir Steve Redgrave, who Bev is talking to later, won gold in 5 consecutive Olympics? Andy Murray and Mark Cavendish.
All knighted as well, all sirs.
What about Lewis Hamilton?
Lewis Hamilton, another night, possible, but, it's whether you see... It's difficult, isn't it, to contrast sports? You know what it's like, because they're both... You can either say whether it's skill, whether it's fitness. There's so many different elements that makes a great sports person.
20 seconds. We've got a football match on Saturday, apparently.
You're going to give it 20 seconds?
Yeah.
Switzerland against England. Gareth Southgate looks like he's going to play 3 at the back, which I know you'd been suggesting for quite some time instead of a 4.
Obviously.
So it hasn't been working so far. Changes need to be made. It looks like changes are going to be made. Switzerland on Saturday, 5 o'clock. Switzerland, I think for the first time ever, Switzerland will be favourites against England. But... I think things are going to change.
All right, that's Paul Cook. We'll hear more from him. Coming up, we're talking about the new miracle weight loss jab, Ozempic. Could it potentially make people go blind? And Joe Biden is coming out fighting. He says he's not going anywhere. I think he remembers there is a second presidential race. And we'll see what Bev's getting up to at the Henley Regatta. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a bit of a cloudy and damp day for many of us yesterday, it's looking a bit brighter and drier for some today, especially across southern parts. Here there will be a good deal of dry and sunny weather around. A few showers perhaps for central parts of England and Wales, but further north the showers are going to be much more frequent for northern England, Northern Ireland and particularly across much of Scotland. And here those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain, some downpours possible and some strong blustery winds as well. Temperatures are still a little bit below average for the time of year. Nonetheless, we should just about get into the low 20s towards the southeast and feeling warm enough in any sunshine. As we head towards this evening then, it is going to be a pretty wet picture across much of Scotland. Like I said, those showers merging into some longer spells of rain. There could be some downpours around, and do watch out for some gusty winds with a bit of a chilly feel to things as a result. Still a few showers continuing as we go through the end of the day across both Northern Ireland, Northern England and into some central parts of England and Wales too. Towards the southeast, likely to stay largely fine as we go through the end of the day, but across southwestern parts we are going to see a bit more cloud feeding its way in and some rain arriving as we go overnight. Now this band of rain that pushes through across southern parts overnight could turn quite heavy at times as we head through the early hours of Friday morning. Further north there will be some clear skies around, but also some further showers at times, and temperatures generally holding up in double figures, though a few places will drop into single digits where we get any clear skies. So Friday then going to be a bit wet across some central southern parts. Bit of uncertainty as to exactly where this rain is going to be, but it could be wet for some. Further north, a similar day to today really in some extent. Plenty of showers around, limited bright or sunny spells. Perhaps the greatest chance of some sunshine will be across central areas. Where the cloud and rain lingers, it will feel a little bit unpleasant, but temperatures in the low 20s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Perth and Kinross, the A984 is closed each way between Meekler and Cooper Angus for water main work. The Mersey Ferry suspended because of a technical problem. Powys, the A483 is closed each way between Abermuir and Garthmill because of a burst water main, causing queues each way along the stretch between Welshpool and Newtown. On the M5 near Bristol, 2 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 17 and 16 from the Cribbs Causeway to Aztec West, causing queues. On the M26 in Kent, there are long westbound queues approaching the M25 because of road works. Buses replaced trains between Lewis and Seaford because of a points failure. Trains on the Isle of Wight have been stopped between Ryan Pierhead and Shanklin because of a signalling problem. And in Cornwall, the A39 is closed each way along Fleet Marketplace in Camelford because of an unsafe building. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
You're joking. Really? Seriously? It's not a line, what is it?
Oh, slippy neck. Oh dear.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. Like I said, I've never won anything like this. That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon. Thank you.
For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It is 10 a.m. This is GB News, of course, and this is Henley Royal Regatta. It's a little breezy, I have to say here. Andrew is there in the studio.
And this is, we're talking about the US President Joe Biden, who insists he's going to stay on to fight the presidential race, despite growing calls from within his own party to step aside. The latest controversy over Captain Tom. Remember him? His daughter Hannah Ingram Moore has been banned from being a charity trustee by the Charity Commission for years. We'll have the latest on that. And Sir Keir Starmer is off to the polling station this morning, but Britain's Newsroom is a politics-free zone. But it's not a sporting-free zone because Henley Regatta returns. One of the biggest events in the British sporting calendar is underway. Bev is there, and Sir Steve Redgrave will join her very soon.
Thursday of Henley Royal Regatta here. As you can see, the boats are taking out onto the water this morning. A huge competitive day of action for them. One of the crews just pushing off at the moment, a female 8 down there, and in a moment I'm going to be talking to one of the victorious female crews from this morning from the Leander Club here in Henley on Thames. A lot more action from here this morning until midday. First though, the very latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Bev, thank you. Good morning from the GB Newsroom at 1 minute past 10. Your top story this hour. Polls are open across Britain as millions of people cast their votes to choose the next government. The first voters were up bright and early as stations opened their doors at 7 o'clock this morning. They'll remain open until 10 o'clock tonight, giving a chance to around 46 million eligible voters to have their say on who forms Britain's next government. A total of 650 parliamentary constituencies are being contested across the UK, but this is the first general election to require photo ID, and voters are being reminded to bring their driver's licence, passport or other ID, or risk being turned away. Forensic police in Tenerife are focusing their efforts on an Airbnb property where missing teenager Jay Slater reportedly stayed before he vanished. It comes after one of the last people to see the 18-year-old insisted he was alive and well when he left his holiday rental to catch a bus back to his own accommodation. Police have described the individual as irrelevant to the ongoing investigation. The search for Jay has now concluded, but police are continuing to look into his last known movements and why he travelled to a location so far from his accommodation. Former police officer Oliver Lawrence told GB News the investigation has been inconsistent.
Definitely shows maybe the level of dysfunction in this investigation. You know, we, as you said, quite rightly pointed out, what we last knew 16 days ago was Jay made contact with his friends late one evening to say that he had 1% of battery left, that he was running out of water and that he was lost and disorientated. And we had a full-blown search carried out by local Spanish authorities in Tenerife. That hasn't obviously gained any results whatsoever. 2 individuals that were known to have been the company of Jay were returned back to the UK after a short level of questioning. So one has to start beginning to ask sort of what is the investigation's plan? What is the hypotheses of the investigators?
In the US, state governors who met with President Biden last night say he's fit for office and he has their backing. The president faced a grilling at the meeting of Democratic governors, which many saw as a barometer of his ongoing support within the party. Among those signalling their support was the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who some see as an alternative for the Democratic ticket. But the United Front, among many of those in the attendance, unsettled some, with reports suggesting there was little effort to gauge the group's private degree of support for the president. Politics professor Scott Lucas says coming days will be crucial.
Tomorrow he has a rally in one swing state in Wisconsin
On Sunday, he has a rally in another swing state, which is Pennsylvania. If Biden can make it through that interview and those rallies and instill some confidence, then maybe he stays in the race. But if Biden stumbles in any of those appearances, then I think next week is the critical time when you will see, not publicly, but privately, the pressure build on him to leave gracefully for the sake of America, given the threat of Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump claims President Biden is quitting and believes he'll face Kamala Harris at the US election. In a video posted to social media, the former president can be seen in a golf buggy speaking to an unidentified person. Despite the White House insisting President Biden will remain in the race, Mr. Trump can be heard saying they've just announced he's quitting, though it's unclear what the claim is based on.
Quitting the race. Is that right? Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. But can you imagine that guy dealing with Putin and the president of China, who's a fierce person? He's a fierce man, a very tough guy. And they see him, they can't. But they just announced he's probably quitting. Good.
The Prince and Princess of Wales are understood to be donating to Hurricane Beryl relief efforts after the storm tore through islands in the southeast Caribbean. At least 6 people are known to have been killed in Grenada, Venezuela and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The storm was expected to be close to major hurricane strength when it passed over Jamaica yesterday. It's heading towards the Cayman Islands today and into Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Police in Australia have recovered the remains of a 12-year-old girl who was attacked by a crocodile while swimming in a creek in a remote part of the country. The unnamed child was reported missing on Tuesday. She'd been swimming with family in Mango Creek, around 225 miles from Darwin in the Northern Territory. The area is home to around 100,000 saltwater crocodiles, which is more than anywhere else in the world, though attacks on people are not common. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with me, Andrew Pearce, and Bev Turner, who is looking particularly fragrant today as she is, lucky old Bev, she is in Henley, where it is the remarkable summer regatta, and Bev has got some really interesting guests. Just to remind you, of course, we're not talking politics at all today because it is the general election. Bev, so what's happening there?
That's right, Andrew. It's very different, Britain's Newsroom this morning, but how wonderful is this? This is one of the best events on the British sporting calendar, and I'm down here at the River Thames with a victorious female crew that have just won the Coxless 4 event. Abby, I'll come to you first. How was the conditions out there? It's a bit breezy up here.
Yeah, it was pretty quiet this morning, but it seemed as soon as we got on the start line, it got quite windy, especially coming out of the island, but I think we handled it okay today.
And Sophie, it's your first regatta, first Henley regatta, you were telling me. What do you make of it?
It's a lot of fun. There's a big fuss around it, and it's a lot of fun to get out there with a lot of spectators, a lot of noise, so I'm just having a lot of fun.
And where are you from? And do you have, you're Australian, are you? Yeah. And do you have regattas in Australia which resemble this? Because it's a real combination, is it, of sport and fun?
I think nothing quite like this. There's nothing quite like Henley, and that's why I've come here, but a lot of fun regattas as well in Sydney.
Philippa, how important is this event as an athlete on the sporting calendar?
Yeah, this is the biggest event in the rowing calendar throughout the year. It all leads up to this moment. You know, whether you're out on the Tuesday or whether you make it through to the Sunday, this is the one everyone waits to race.
Lauren, you've done 4 Henley regattas, have you now? What's it like building up to this? How hard are you training for an event like this? Give us an idea of your sort of average day.
So we get up and we train probably twice a day from like 7 a.m. to kind of 9 and then 11 till midday. But it's in our back of our minds every session, every weight session, every bike, every erg, every time we're on the water. Henley is the main goal. And so it's the epitome of our season. And so it's great to finally actually just be here and put our hard work to show.
And this event has a combination of club rowers, college rowers, and also internationals as well.
So, yeah, I think that's what's so special at Henley. It's like there's people from across all over the world, all different levels. As you said, there's club levels, collegiate levels, which is new to the women's scene especially, which is really nice to see. And then there's the high-end kind of elite level as well. So it's just great. It's a regatta for all, and it kind of caters to all abilities as well, which is really nice.
Abby, you're all in your 20s, aren't you? And have you moved here specifically to train at Leander as a performance centre?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Scotland, so I'm from Aberdeen. I did 2 years of a university up there, but I wanted to kind of go into the next step for rowing, which was representing GB at the under-23 stage. But kind of in order to do that, I had to move to Leander to train at the level that everybody is down here.
It's just remarkable, Sophie. And you've had international experience already for the under-23s, have you?
Yes, so I competed last year for Australia at the Under-23 World Championships. So, yeah, it's just a fun place to be, and I love rowing, so, yeah.
What is the appeal of rowing, though, Sophie? What is the appeal? Because it's blooming hard work.
Yeah, it is hard work. I think the thing we all search for is the perfect stroke, and the feeling when you're out in the water, it's kind of so freeing, just a lot of fun with your friends as well. And when you really click together and go fast, it's just so much fun. My mum calls it ballet on water, which is, I think, a compliment, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, but also like physically draining, Philippa. You're at uni now. You've graduated.
Yeah,
Just graduated. And how are you managing then to combine rowing with your job and your other ambitions in life? Because it's not easy, is it?
No, it's definitely not easy. It takes a lot of getting used to. But yeah, like Lauren said, so train twice in the morning, and then most of us work in the afternoons, kind of just making the best out of what we can do here at Henley and how we can work around training, because obviously rowing comes first, especially when you're rowing at our level. But no, it is sometimes a bit of a balancing act, but definitely it's nice to have something away from rowing to keep you focused as well.
And Lauren, you've got another event this weekend. That's not it. What else are you doing?
Yeah, so the four of us are also doubling up in the women's Remnant 8. And so today we have only one race in the 4, but tomorrow we have the 8 and the 4. It's a new realm for all of us. None of us are doubled up, but I think we're really exciting to put out 2 good performances and see what we can do. Yeah.
Brilliant. And do you watch other races while you're here? Have you got other teammates that you want to support? And do you get to do some socialising as well?
Yeah, we definitely support our teammates throughout the regatta. There's a lot of women that managed to qualify for the regatta, which has been amazing to see, especially from Leander. We can go and socialise and enjoy the regatta a bit more once we've been hopefully not knocked out to the Sunday. But yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, ladies. Isn't it brilliant? You know, young people working hard, representing their club, representing their universities, representing their country. Just brilliant. It's an amazing event, and it's just all that's best of Great Britain, actually, on a day like today. It's so superb. Let me just see if we can have another picture down there. The wind is picking up, and that will affect some of the performances. Of course, you can see some of the athletes here walking along with their boats. It's not the kind of sport where you have somebody to do it's not Formula One. You've not got a whole team putting your vehicle together for you. These are the rowers here. They will look after their own boats. They will put them on the water. They will put them in the tents here. And the building just behind the tents there, that is the Leander Club. So the ladies I've just been talking to, that is the club that they represent. It's a few hundred years old, at least, that rowing club. It's just so beautiful down here this morning. The crowds are building up. The weather is beautiful. Where else would you rather be? Stay with us here on Britain's Newsroom and enjoy it. First, though, a very quick break.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Question is...
Should our museums stay free for everyone and anyone, or should we be charging our tourists?
So many of the artefacts are from around the world, stolen actually. I think it's almost to add insult to injury to ask people to pay to see the artefacts that were taken without their permission. One of the things that the museum set itself up for is a kind of World Heritage where you can see the stuff they took from your country free of charge, because the British state's willing to do that. Is one of the reasons why we hold on to many of the artefacts from around the world instead of giving them back.
I mean, that's a noble argument, Wayman, but none of the other countries in the world that also contain artefacts from all over the world indulge in that, do they? We still have to pay to see anything that's come from the UK that might be overseas?
No, but the absolute truth is that we've stolen a lot more over many more years than anybody else, because we're a very, very, we had a very, very big empire, and during that time, taking things from other countries without their permission.
And I think our wonderful country, the United Kingdom, is the cradle of modern civilization, not of the ancient world, but of the modern world. You know, for centuries, we've contributed things to the world, which has spread out around the world, and the influence that we've put upon countries around the globe has been massively significant. I think it's a privilege for people to be able to come to this country and track the history of our country through our museums. I can't understand why they've ever been free. The upkeep of museums runs into hundreds of millions of pounds a year. Somebody's got to maintain them and keep them good. Somebody's got to go around the world and collect the artifacts which are in our museums. And I've always had the adage in life, if something is free, it's probably not worth having.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
10:16, you're with Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner. With me in the studio, we've got a fabulous panel today. Mike Parry, pin-up, middle-aged pin-up, as he likes to tell us, and Jonathan Lees, political analyst. Now, gentlemen, let's dive into today's newspapers. We have to talk, don't we, about Biden. Sleepy Joe Biden, Dopey Joe Biden. He's come out fighting. The White House say he's going nowhere. I thought, Mike, the key to this would be his wife, the First Lady, the most powerful woman in America.
Most powerful woman in the world at the moment.
Indeed.
She is now Lady Macbeth.
She is.
She is holding the future of the world in her hands, OK?
Absolutely is.
And you can tell how chaotic it all is, because I'll just pick 3 titles this morning. The Telegraph, The Times and The Mail. They've all got a different story on where Biden's going, OK? The Telegraph is saying Harris emerges as favourite. Kamala Harris, who most...
Vice President.
who most people regard as almost as dangerous as Joe Biden, you know, in terms of the policies she might impose upon the world. So they're saying she's moving to the front. Meanwhile, the Times, Team Biden holds crisis talks in bid to save candidacy. But in the Mail, supporters saying you've got to step down. So, you know, there's a full range of what's going on. Nobody seems to know. Have I just seen some footage saying that Donald Trump appears to have had some intelligence from somewhere that Biden is now going to step down, and started muttering about, that's OK, I'll go against Kamala Harris. She's
easier target.
Easier, yeah.
I mean, he obviously doesn't know. Jonathan, I mean, you would have seen quite a lot, if not all, of the TV debate. It was appalling. I actually felt sorry for him.
I was actually at Glastonbury when it happened, so I'm afraid I didn't actually watch it at the time. Yes, I did watch clips of it, of course. And, yeah, it was not great.
That's an understatement.
That's a statement.
That is an understatement.
It's an understatement. I think that we can all agree that it was not a great performance, and there are real question marks over Biden's capacity and capability and fitness for office. I mean, I don't think that's a sort of partisan thing to say. So, obviously, at the moment, he is the presumptive nominee, and it is in his gift, unless, you know, there is the kind of coup around him, unless people say, we won't serve under you, we won't... You can sort of make it very, very difficult for him. But you can't force him out, I understand, by the rules. So, clearly, there's going to have to be a lot of discussion. But, you know, I do think it's a bit strange that we're having all of these discussions immediately about Biden's fitness to serve after that debate. But after Trump literally incited a riot against the US government.
Yeah, but time's moved on, Jonathan.
The US population somehow seems to think that he is a viable candidate to run for president.
Well,
he's a convicted felon now. He's just been convicted of felony.
It's not a question of whether he's a viable candidate. It's a question of who is alternative to Biden. And the only alternative to Biden is Donald Trump. I don't know if you picked up over the weekend about this plot within the Democratic Party. Everybody was surprised. Why did the debate take place so early? Why wasn't it going to take place...
Obama.
Exactly. Why didn't it take place nearer the convention or after the convention?
Which is in August.
Exactly. The answer is there is a cabal of Democrats who know Biden's got to go and who deliberately arranged this debate early to expose him to the world as the man incapable of running society in the Western world.
One thing I would say
and the fingerprints on that were Obama's.
Of course.
Because Obama's still a major player in the Democratic Party.
Of course he is.
Passionately about the Democratic Party. He worked with Biden, who was his vice president for 8 years, and he only gave him a very lukewarm endorsement when he became the Democrat nominee all those years ago. It's the equivalent of the men in grey coats here.
It is.
The men in grey coats and women in grey coats have to do the right thing, don't they?
Well, grey coat sounds a bit like an asylum. I think it's grey suits, isn't it?
Grey suits. Grey suits, you're quite right.
I mean, look, despite everything, I would still rather have Joe Biden as Commander-in-Chief than Donald Trump. And, you know, obviously...
Honestly, I think that's dangerous talk. Very, very dangerous talk.
Have you seen Donald Trump
Yeah,
talking?
but Donald Trump...
He's losing the plot as well.
No, I don't agree. Donald Trump represents a lot of things, some of which are very unsavoury, some of which are, you know, allegedly criminal. But one thing he does represent...
He's not alleged, he's convicted.
One thing he does represent is strength. There were no wars while Donald Trump was President of the United States of America for the first time since the Second World War. I don't think Ukraine would have happened with Donald Trump there, and I'm certain the Middle East wouldn't be as dangerous as it is now if Trump was there. I'm certain of it.
On that point, I'm just going to bring in now, gentlemen, we'll come back to... We're going to join the political analyst Nomiki Konst, who is very good connections to the Democratic Party. Good morning to you. We don't know what to believe here, as Mike Parry was saying. We've got 3 different reports in newspapers. He's fighting on, he's not fighting on.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris is being teed up. What do you think is happening? And more to the point, what should happen?
What should happen is key. So this is a decision, I believe, that is really just going to come down to Joe Biden and his conscience. And I think everybody's monitoring the polls, frankly, every single day. And the reality is this is sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more the media talks about it, the more factions and fissures pitch their stories to the press as unnamed sources, you're going to get more conversation and more confusion around whether or not he should run or he shouldn't run. I'm of the belief that I do think that the administration has been far more progressive on many things domestically than we expected. And I think that he has a strong team around him. And, you know, even if we believe that he was tired and jet lagged and had a cold, it's still better than Donald Trump, who wants to dismantle democracy and every single institution that he hasn't already dismantled through austerity and not filling, vacancies in the office when he was president.
But Nomiki, I was very struck by what, Nancy Pelosi said. She's a key figure in the Democratic Party. She said, was this an incident, or an episode, or is it a condition? And if it is a condition, he clearly isn't fit to be President of the United States.
Is he fit to be president of the United States? That's not for me to decide. But is he somebody who can defeat Donald Trump? I think this is the question that folks are really grappling with right now. The alternative is we do have a brokered convention. And I was on the reform committee after 2016 of the Democratic Party. And we issued a set of reforms that passed over resoundingly in the Democratic Party membership, elected membership. Unfortunately, those reforms were not put into place because there are players in the Democratic Party that were appointed that resist these reforms, opening up the party, making it transparent. And the consequences are we don't have we don't have a bench. We don't have funding of state parties across the country. We're not able to defeat the well-oiled right-wing machine that is operating in every single community in the United States. And we did not have a real primary. So folks are wondering, how did we get here? Well, we got here because the DNC leadership refused to take on these reforms. And now as we go into the convention, it is super important that we understand what this process is and that it's honest, because there is an opportunity here to excite folks across the country, have rallies with lots of different candidates. There's a man named Dr. Jim Zogby who sits on the DNC. He's seasoned for years. He's been talking about these reforms, and he did an interview in The Nation, and he laid out a process that I think is genius because, you know, you're exhibiting our fresh leadership across the country, Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, Cory Booker, you name it, and they can go out there and give speeches and organize and revive the party and steal the attention away in the media from the Republicans and Donald Trump, who, you know, is stuck in his own legal battle right now still. And I think it'll be good for the Democrats if they do it right. Unfortunately, they don't have a track record of doing it right. It would be somewhat like the UK system, which you're going through right now. So, you know, I really do think if we are honest with ourselves as Democrats and we are inclusive and we practice good governance, the outcome of this could actually be a gift. But that really comes down to whether or not hubris exists or doesn't in the Democratic Party.
Well, that's fascinating insight. Thank you for that. That's Aminki Kontz, who is an American political analyst. Mike Parry, if Pelosi's put a finger on it and said it is a condition, then the Democratic Party, or the senior Democrats, have engaged in a major cover-up, which is shameful.
Well, again, Jill Biden has got to take some responsibility for what's going on. She's the person closest to the president. Jill Biden, his wife.
She's his wife.
Yeah, she's his wife. She lives with him. She sees his behaviour every day.
She's not an elected official.
No.
His wife, she sees it every day.
Exactly. She sees his movement. She sees his cognitive ability. She sees his thinking.
Well, maybe she has, and she thinks that he's fine.
I'd like to have asked Nomiki what it means in America if the New York Times suddenly is not endorsing the Democratic presidential candidate because of fears for his health. That surely is massive, isn't it?
That is quite a moment.
I think that what is happening in America generally is incredibly worrying. I think that we need to be focusing on the Supreme Court decision this week that effectively grants a president immunity to do effectively anything he likes.
It's a partial decision, isn't it?
It's a conclusion. It's 6-3 is the conclusion. And that is incredibly worrying for both what Trump has done while president and what Trump may do while president. If Trump can go back into the White House knowing that he can do basically anything he wants and face total immunity for the rest of his life afterwards, that is a scenario that doesn't bear thinking about. The most important thing for the Democrats right now is to ensure, as Nomiki says, that Trump is beaten. This man is
but John, that will happen if they get rid of Biden. More probably than it will if Biden's the candidate.
I'm not disagreeing with you. In fact, the more I think about it, the more... And I like Joe Biden. I think he's done a lot of good things. He's had, obviously...
But he's a danger to the world.
Right, I don't subscribe to the idea that he's a danger to the world, but I do think that clearly he has concerned a lot of people. Kamala Harris, I think, having, you know, sort of the White House made a big mistake in sort of making her the fall guy for all the bad decisions and the poor decision-making, because they actually need her. And I think that she is actually rising in stature. Her opinion, her approval ratings are improving, and she could be a very, very strong candidate against Trump, and that's why Trump is slagging her off.
Should there not be a very simple thing done here? Should he not have to undergo a cognitive test? And because Trump is a candidate of a certain age, make him do the same?
Who's going to make the decision? Who's going to make the decision to say the president of the United States now must undergo a test to see whether he's lost his marbles effectively?
Maybe it should be the law of the land.
Was it the 25th Amendment?
Maybe the law of the land, but it's not the law.
Isn't that the amendment that says you can actually you can get rid of the president if he's incapacitated?
Yes, it does. It does, but he's got to be proven to be incapacitated, and the job is to get that proof.
How do you get him there?
Yeah.
Let's change the mood, gentlemen, because what is this about flying hippopotamuses?
Well, this is a fantastic story. Ever since you were a kid, you've seen hippopotamuses with big, smiling, laughing faces, haven't they? And they're cuddly little creatures. You think, wouldn't it be nice to hug that hippo? Well, don't, because hippos are the most dangerous animals on Earth, OK? Now, the problem is, because they spend most of their time wallowing in rivers, because that's where they live, scientists up till now haven't really been able to work out how fast they move if they're going to chase you. They move at 18 miles an hour.
What?
So So if you upset a hippopotamus, this comes from research in the Royal Veterinary College in North Mims, Hertfordshire, in this country. Right. If you upset a hippo, you better get moving very, very quickly. They run at 18 miles an hour, and 15% of the time they are flying through the air because they propel themselves forward so fast that all their limbs are off the air, and they will fly towards you. Their jaws are like the jaws of, you know, granite or concrete, will smash around you. So this is a warning. The hippos are very, very dangerous animals. Don't pick a fight with them because they'll outrun you and you will be stalebred.
Have you ever encountered a hippo?
I have actually.
I have too.
I went to
in a river in
a
Africa,
game reserve in South Africa.
Yeah,
when I was and seeing majestic creatures, terrifying.
Yeah, I did as well.
It was majestic.
Yeah, I did.
And enormous, and then did what nature does, and you realise the scale of this beast.
Yeah,
but it looked like a very lovely scene, but now
like you'd go and pat him.
Yeah, that's why people think they're so cuddly, because they don't eat people; they just kill you.
They just crush you. Yeah. And I thought, how sweet. And the guys who know we're not getting any closer.
No, exactly. I was in the Kruger National Park actually, and watching these two hippos, and as I say, they're just wallow all day in the river. They look so docile, but apparently, if you get on the wrong side of one of them, you have had it, pal. Believe me.
I think we've just got time to talk about why Marbella Council has got some problems for certain beachgoers. I hope they're not British.
No, it's unbelievable. Marbella Council has announced that beachgoers can be fined €750 if they urinate in the sea. So I have several questions here. Firstly, how would you ever know? How would you ever know? Secondly, does that mean they're going to appoint police officers to wade into the sea to see if they can detect these people?
What, are they going to have some sort of...
I don't know. I don't know. And thirdly, in terms of, you know, keeping the world clean, I can't think of anything which is least likely to pollute the world than, you know, a small amount of urine in the Mediterranean Ocean.
It's human waste, I suppose. Not the best.
I suppose it's they're trying to stop the drunk. Perhaps staggering back to his hotel, who might decide...
Right, so this is... OK, maybe this is it. So if you are kind of staggering back from the club at 3 a.m... and you are
don't think you can get wee in the sea.
Standing up on the beach, weeing into the sea, then it's like if you do that, it's, you know, in public...
But wouldn't you have to get very close to work out whether somebody was committing this offence? Because if I was this far away from you now, and you decided that, you know, nature had to take its course and I have to urinate, you wouldn't be able to tell anyway.
I think all these things they operate on the deterrent model as well. They kind of have a sign
that's true.
Don't do it, and then maybe people will be discouraged.
Gentlemen, I know neither of you would ever even contemplate weeing in
absolutely,
or a swimming pool, would you?
Certainly not a swimming pool, definitely not.
You're listening to Britain's Newsroom here on GB News. Beb Turner is with us in Henley. It is, of course, the annual regatta, and she's got some really fabulous guests coming up. But first, we're going to get our latest headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Andrew, thank you. It's 10:31. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your headlines. Polls are open across Britain as millions of people cast their votes to choose the next government. The first voters were up bright and early as stations opened their doors at 7 o'clock this morning. They'll remain open until 10 o'clock tonight, giving a chance to around 46 million eligible voters to have their say on who forms Britain's next government. A total of 650 parliamentary constituencies are being contested across the UK. But this is the first general election to require photo ID, and voters are being reminded to bring their driver's licence, passport or other ID, or risk being turned away. Forensic police in Tenerife are focusing their efforts on an Airbnb property where missing teenager Jay Slater reportedly stayed before he vanished. It comes after one of the last people to see the 18-year-old insisted he was alive and well when he left his holiday rental to catch a bus back to his own accommodation. Police have described the individual as irrelevant to the ongoing case. In the US, state governors who met with President Biden last night say he's fit for office and he has their backing. The president faced a grilling at the meeting of Democratic governors, which many saw as a test of his ongoing support within the party. The Prince and Princess of Wales are understood to be donating to Hurricane Beryl relief efforts after the storm tore through islands in the southeast Caribbean. At least 6 people are known to have been killed by the storm, which is now heading towards the Cayman Islands and into Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. For the latest story, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2752 and €1.1809. The price of gold is £1,847 and 98 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,231 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a bit of a cloudy and damp day for many of us yesterday, it's looking a bit brighter and drier for some today, especially across southern parts. Here there will be a good deal of dry and sunny weather around. A few showers perhaps for central parts of England and Wales, but further north the showers are going to be much more frequent for northern England, Northern Ireland, and particularly across much of Scotland. And here those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain, some downpours possible, and some strong blustery winds as well. Temperatures are still a little bit below average for the time of year. Nonetheless, we should just about get into the low 20s towards the southeast and feeling warm enough in any sunshine. As we head towards this evening then, it is going to be a pretty wet picture across much of Scotland. Like I said, those showers merging into some longer spells of rain. There could be some downpours around, and do watch out for some gusty winds with a bit of a chilly feel to things as a result. Still a few showers continuing as we go through the end of the day across both Northern Ireland, Northern England, and into some central parts of England and Wales too. Towards the southeast, likely to stay largely fine as we go through the end of the day, but across southwestern parts we are going to see a bit more cloud feeding its way in and some rain arriving as we go overnight. Now this band of rain that pushes through across southern parts overnight could turn quite heavy at times as we head through the early hours of Friday morning. Further north there will be some clear skies around, but also some further showers at times, and temperatures generally holding up in double figures, though a few places will drop into single digits where we get any clear skies. So Friday then going to be a bit wet across some central southern parts. Bit of uncertainty as to exactly where this rain is going to be, but it could be wet for some. Further north, a similar day to today really in some extent. Plenty of showers around, limited bright or sunny spells. Perhaps the greatest chance of some sunshine will be across central areas. Where the cloud and rain lingers, it will feel a little bit unpleasant, but temperatures in the low 20s.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Perth and Kinross, the A984 is closed each way between Meetclure and Cooper Angus because of water main work. The M62 in West Yorkshire is blocked each way for an investigation between junctions 29 and 30 between the M1 and Rothwell, causing queues. Mersey Ferry suspended because of a technical problem. In Lincolnshire, the A15 is closed each way at Baston after an accident. In the West Midlands, the A45 is partly blocked westbound by an accident on the Small Heath Highway at Poets Corner at Small Heath in Birmingham. Powys, the A483 is closed each way between Abermuir and Garthmill for water main repairs. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound delays approaching the M25 because of roadworks. Train services on the Isle of Wight are suspended between Ryde Pierhead and Shanklin because of a signalling problem. And in Cornwall, the A39 is closed along the marketplace in Camelford because of an unsafe building. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
(10:37). This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Andrew Pearce, and Bev Turner, who is in Henley for the regatta. Now, an extraordinary story. We all marvelled, didn't we, at the exploits of the legendary Sir Tom Moore during COVID. He did that. He walked and walked and walked and raised millions and millions and millions of pounds for the NHS. Now, the daughter of Captain Sir Tom Moore, extraordinary, has now been disqualified from being a charity trustee. The Charity Commission has blocked Hannah Ingram Moore and her husband Colin from taking on charitable roles after looking into the affairs of the Captain Tom Foundation after his death in 2021. Well, joining me to talk about this is Paul Connew, who is the former editor of the Sunday Mirror. Paul, this is the most extraordinary fall from grace, isn't it? Because we regularly saw Hannah with her father, alongside her father, with him when he got his honour from the Queen. She spoke proudly of her father, and yet since his death, the charity has become mired in all sorts of controversy. And now, the ultimate humiliation, she's been banned from acting as a trustee of the charity. Tell us all about it.
Andrew, this has been a long time coming, in a sense. I think we in the media have held back for quite a while before we began investigating, because it seemed too intrusive or too harsh to move in earlier on. I mean, for example, out of curiosity, and I'm sure other journalists looked at the company's house records and Hannah and her husband's businesses were, we say, not doing too well. But you had to hold back. But since then, the media has done a good job in exposing the various question marks about the legacy of Captain Tom. Tragically, I mean, he was a national hero. He raised £39.8 million for the NHS. And of course, that famous image of him being knighted from a distance by the Queen. And his legacy won't die, but it has been besmirched to an extent by what happened with his daughter and son-in-law. Central to all of this, actually, interestingly enough, it was the family who put out the statement yesterday about the Charity Commission, not the Charity Commission, who merely responded because their investigation is still ongoing. But Hannah has been banned from being a charity trustee for 10 years and her husband for 8 years, which is an indication of how seriously the Charity Commission already view this, even before their investigation has been completed. And at the heart of this is the fact that Captain Tom wrote, or was helped to write, 3 books before his death. Now, in the prologue to those books, there is reference to it supporting the work of the Captain Tom Foundation. But in fact, £800,000, repeat, £800,000 from the book proceeds went into a private company held by his daughter and son-in-law, which they argued, in fact, was what Captain Tom wanted. Although there's no written record of that, and certainly anybody reading the prologue of that book would have got the impression that buying the book was going to help the Captain Tom Foundation. And then, of course, after that, we had the saga of the building in the garden of their Bedfordshire home, which of course was originally, they got planning permission for a Captain Tom Foundation building, which was going to house archives, records, displays, like a museum of his work. But without planning permission, it became a much bigger building with a spa in it, which of course not only broke the planning consent, but also angered their neighbours. And now, of course, they are very unpopular in the local community and have put their house up for sale for £2.25 million. But so far, as I understand it, there are no takers. Whether, in fact, being the property where Captain Tom did those famous televised walks or not is a boon or the reverse to trying to sell it, who knows?
She also, I remember, Paul, the Charity Commission refused to allow the daughter to pay herself a £100,000 annual salary from the foundation.
That's correct. She also, of course, she became CEO of the charity for a period of about, I think, 7 or 8 months, and gave herself a salary and expenses totaling, I think, in excess of £70,000.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Because people gave to Captain Tom because they were so inspired by him. He was a remarkable man. I mean, he made it, didn't he, to his 100th birthday, and we lost him aged 100 in 2021. The whole charity now is being wound down. It's a very sorry episode, isn't it?
It is, and his legacy is tainted by the actions of his daughter and son-in-law. And his book was called Tomorrow Will Be a Good Day. Well, there haven't been too many good days for his daughter and son-in-law since the media and the Charity Commission began investigating.
Absolutely right. Paul, let me ask you, just before I let you go, you're a keen observer of what happens in the United States. I'm just absolutely riveted by what's going to happen about Joe Biden after that catastrophic performance in the presidential debate. It seems he's determined to fight on. Should he, or should the political equivalent of the men in grey suits in America take him aside and tell him he's got to stand down?
They should. I mean, I come from a particular viewpoint here because I knew Donald Trump personally quite well when I was based in New York, and I've long argued on air and in print that he was never fit to be POTUS, and the idea of him regaining the White House, I find, is chilling both for American democracy and the interest of Western democracy generally. But so Joe Biden has to stand down. Somehow there has to be a way of persuading him or forcing him to stand down. Already there are, apart from the behind-the-scenes whispers in the New York Times reporting yesterday that he's considering stepping down, there are others behind the scenes trying to persuade him, and the pressure is building. And I spoke to a very senior Democrat friend in contact day before yesterday, and he said he wouldn't bet more than a 50-50 chance that Biden will be the candidate. But the complications on how you force him to step down. He's going to do an interview tomorrow, which goes out on the weekend, which they're hoping, or his aides are hoping, will certainly, if you like, go some way to reversing the damage done by that disastrous debate with Trump. But I've also heard a Machiavellian theory from some contacts, which I don't know how true it is, but saying that perhaps Biden was encouraged by some of his own team into that early, because it was a very unusually early debate, because they thought exactly what happened would happen, and it would give them time to actually somehow remove him from the candidacy or persuade him to step down, and well, they found another candidate. But they haven't got long, because the Democratic Convention is in August, not far away, and they have to decide whether they're going to have, for example, if Biden is persuaded to step down, then they would probably have to have an open convention in which the other replacement candidates would, it happened when Lyndon Johnson stepped down, and that would open the gates to those who, I mean, the probable favourite. I mean, Kamala Harris is obviously being touted, although she's.
Paul, we've run out of time, I'm afraid. Sorry to stop there. We've run out of time, but Paul, it's very interesting. Paul Conley, former editor of the Sunday Mirror, and it just shows what a murky business politics. You're listening to Britain's Newsroom. The time is 10:46.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Do you put jam or cream first on your scone? Divisive.
A new study has found that 44% of Brits put jam on before the cream. Which is the right way to eat a scone?
In my opinion, definitely jam first. But I have to say, do you know what? As long as you enjoy it and it's delicious, and you've got nice scone, nice jam, amazing clotted cream, who cares?
Paul, why the jam first?
Because I love that chilled clotted cream that you hit first, then into that room temperature jam, and then that lovely baked scone.
And one of our viewers has written in and said actually she puts the jam on first because otherwise you would get it all over, as in it would wobble off on the top of the cream.
But I think it's easy to dribble the jam onto the cream. You're not spreading the jam onto the cream if you put it on top.
I would do jam first because it just seems to make less mess. So the jam spreads easy and just a dollop of cream on top.
Is there much of a market for the savoury ones that you have?
Yeah. Like when you're frying onions for a hot dog, like fairground onions, fold that through your scone mix, bake your scones, so you've got this lovely kind of like roasted onion scone
Dawn isn't
mix.
into it.
Braised beef, clotted cream, horseradish and watercress.
Oh my word.
Absolutely incredible.
Well, you're very adventurous, Paul. Very adventurous.
Yeah. But think of it, you know, like when you make beef stew and you put those scones, drop scones on top, like a beef cobbler.
Yeah.
It's that inspiration.
Well, I would call it like a dumpling.
Paul, do you think very quickly, do you think these will become a classic?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Because I think there's just so much more to clotted cream, scones than just the traditional cream tea.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 10:49. This is Britain's Newsroom. I'm Andrew Pearce, and Bev Turner. She is in Henley, where it is the annual regatta, which is one of the great sporting events of the year. Bev, who have you got with you and who are you going to be talking to?
Yes, morning all. It is absolutely heavenly here at Henley Regatta this morning, and I'm with Harriet Reid. And Harriet is the director of the Henley Literary Festival, because Henley has really owned, hasn't it, Harriet, not just events like this, but also you've got the music festival and the book festival in its 18th year. How did it start and how's it going now?
It actually started by my mum, so very much a family festival, and it started 18 years ago, so she basically got made redundant from a job and thought, a book festival will be fun. It turns out it's quite hard work and fun. So we've been doing it for 18 years. We're kind of thrilled. And actually, I think, as you said, like Henley is obviously about this. It is so beautiful, but there's a real cultural scene here, and we're so lucky to have the festival, the Henley Festival next week, and then we've got the Kenton Theatre, we've got an amazing museum. There's so much from a really small town. I think we're one of sort of the smallest towns that offers so much culturally, so we're really lucky.
So tell us what the book festival involves. I've worked there for you on a few occasions, interviewing people such as Kate Humble. Who else have I interviewed? Dermot O'Leary.
Jason Plato.
Jason Plato, exactly. I'm going to be interviewing our very own Andrew Pearce.
You are indeed.
This autumn.
On the opening day. So it starts on Saturday the 28th September. We have over 130 events happening this year. And yeah, we start with you guys on the Saturday, and you've been such a great supporter to us, and we've been so lucky that even the interviewers are brilliant, let alone the lineup. We're really lucky that we have this sort of brilliant, because of where we're placed, so many brilliant high-profile people who are really good at interviewing. And yeah, this year we've got Michael Palin, Julia Donaldson, Zainab Badawi, Sarah Cox, Rick Stein, Sarah Raven. So it's sort of the most brilliant lineup this year. I'm really kind of proud of it and feel like our 18th year, we kind of keep on feeling like we're getting bigger and bigger. I'm not sure where we're going to stop getting bigger.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because there was a period of time when it felt like people weren't reading books anymore. The publishing industry seemed to be in decline. Everyone was looking at mobile phones. But that's sort of done a full 180, it feels. The publishing industry feels very buoyant now.
Yeah, really booming. And booming with such a mixture. There are so many different titles and so many interesting things and themes that come from the publishing world that if you actually watch it's a really clever, they're kind of ahead of the trend quite a lot of the time with things. And I think that's the thing, sometimes people will say to me, I don't read, so I wouldn't like to come. I was like, there is something from everything. If you like Formula One, we've got Will Buxton. If you want to go to a kids event, there's options for that. And I think that's the difference, is where some festivals perhaps are aimed at just one audience, we're aimed at such a wide audience.
Yeah, tell me about the children's angle of Henley Festival, Literary Festival as well, because I've taken my kids down and you have these kind of interactive workshops where kids can work with illustrators and create some incredible work.
Yeah, we've got absolutely brilliant. So obviously you have got the Julia Donaldsons, David Williams came last year, so we do get those sort of main names, but you also have these fascinating, there's a Beano comic workshop this year. There's also there's Rob Biddulph, who obviously did the Draw with Robs, and everyone loved during lockdown comes, and he always sells out. And then his book queue always takes 3 hours because he draws a picture for every child and makes a real sort of effort to talk to them all. We've also got an amazing schools programme that post COVID we moved to streaming as well as in person, and since 2021 we've reached 60,000 children, all for free. So and we've got Joseph Coelho, the current Children's Laureate, who's just about to come out of his tenure doing that. So the children's is brilliant, and we also have sort of mixed teenage event, like family events. So David Olusoga's doing a pop-up in November around his slightly aimed at a family event, so you can have conversations. We have events like previously we've had Talking to Your Teenage Self, where you could bring your teenage girls and you come away and you're actually thinking about things. And I think literary festivals allow you to have such brilliant open conversations.
Yeah, don't they? And can we just have a moment? We're going to go to the weather any minute now, Harriet, but look at this place this afternoon, this morning. Just incredible view down the Thames there. As you can see, lots of people having picnics, enjoying some drinks on these incredible, beautiful boats. There's going to be a race coming down any minute now. We are going to be here with you until midday. Harriet, thank you so much for talking to us about the Literary Festival. Don't go anywhere. It is time for the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a bit of a cloudy and damp day for many of us yesterday, it's looking a bit brighter and drier for some today, especially across southern parts. Here there will be a good deal of dry and sunny weather around. A few showers perhaps for central parts of England and Wales, but further north the showers are going to be much more frequent for Northern England, Northern Ireland, and particularly across much of Scotland. And here those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain, some downpours possible, and some strong blustery winds as well. Temperatures are still a little bit below average for the time of year. Nonetheless, we should just about get into the low 20s towards the southeast and feeling warm enough in any sunshine. As we head towards this evening then, it is going to be a pretty wet picture across much of Scotland. Like I said, those showers merging into some longer spells of rain. There could be some downpours around, and do watch out for some gusty winds with a bit of a chilly feel to things as a result. Still a few showers continuing as we go through the end of the day across both Northern Ireland, Northern England, and into some central parts of England and Wales too. Towards the southeast, likely to stay largely fine as we go through the end of the day, but across southwestern parts we are going to see a bit more cloud feeding its way in and some rain arriving as we go overnight. Now this band of rain that pushes through across southern parts overnight could turn quite heavy at times as we head through the early hours of Friday morning. Further north there will be some clear skies around, but also some further showers at times, and temperatures generally holding up in double figures, though a few places will drop into single digits where we get any clear skies. So Friday then going to be a bit wet across some central southern parts. Bit of uncertainty as to exactly where this rain is going to be, but it could be wet for some. Further north, a similar day to today really in some extent. Plenty of showers around, limited bright or sunny spells. Perhaps the greatest chance of some sunshine will be across central areas. Where the cloud and rain lingers, it will feel a little bit unpleasant, but temperatures in the low 20s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to a very special Britain's Newsroom. It's a very special sort of broadcast today on GB News. Andrew Pierce is in the studio in London. I'm Bev Turner at Henley Regatta. Andrew.
Thanks, Bev. Now, we're asking the question, it's a very important question, is Joe Biden still fit for office? The US President insists he will fight on, despite calls from within his own party to step down. And Sir Ed Davey is off to the polling station this morning, but Britain's Newsroom is a politics-free zone. A Ozempic warning, a new study shows the weight loss jab, the miracle jab some people call it, could in fact make you go blind, and the risk for diabetics is even greater. And at Wimbledon, the Murray brothers take to the centre court. Andy Murray will play an emotional first match at Wimbledon today alongside his brother Jamie. But will this be his farewell from Wimbledon?
I'm just tootling my way across the River Thames here. I've got Sir Steve Redgrave just waiting for me, just in there in that building. I'm going to be talking to him any minute now. Don't go anywhere. It's a very exciting show between now and midday. First, the very latest news with Sophia.
Bev, thank you. Good morning from the GB Newsroom. At 1 minute past 11, your headlines. Polls are open across Britain as millions of people cast their votes to choose the next government. The first voters were up bright and early as stations opened their doors at 7 o'clock this morning. They'll remain open until 10 o'clock tonight, giving a chance to around 46 million eligible voters to have their say on who forms Britain's next government. A total of 650 parliamentary constituencies are being contested across the UK. But this is the first general election to require photo ID, and voters are being reminded to bring their driver's licence, passport or other ID, or risk being turned away. Forensic police in Tenerife are focusing their efforts on an Airbnb property where missing teenager Jay Slater reportedly stayed before he vanished. It comes after one of the last people to see the 18-year-old insisted he was alive and well when he left his holiday rental to catch a bus back to his own accommodation. Police have described the individual as irrelevant to the ongoing investigation. The search for Jay has now concluded, but police are continuing to look into his last known movements and why he travelled to a location so far from his accommodation. Former police officer Oliver Lawrence told GB News the investigation has been inconsistent.
definitely shows maybe the level of dysfunction in this investigation. You know, we, as you said, quite rightly pointed out, what we last knew 16 days ago was Jay made contact with his friends late one evening to say that he had 1% of battery left, that he was running out of water, and that he was lost and disorientated. And we had a full-blown search carried out by local Spanish authorities in Tenerife. That hasn't obviously gained any results whatsoever. 2 individuals that were known to have been the company of Jay were returned back to the UK after a short level of questioning. So one has to start beginning to ask sort of what is the investigational plan? What is the hypotheses of the investigators?
Meanwhile, in the US, state governors who met with President Biden last night say he's fit for office and he has their backing. The president faced a grilling at the meeting of Democratic governors, which many saw as a test of his ongoing support within the party. Among those signalling their support was the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who some see as an alternative for the Democratic ticket. But the United Front, among many of those in attendance, unsettled some, with reports suggesting there was little effort to gauge the group's private degree of support for the president. Politics professor Scott Lucas says the coming days will be crucial.
Tomorrow he has a rally in one swing state in Wisconsin. On Sunday he has a rally in another swing state, which is Pennsylvania. If Biden can make it through that interview and those rallies and instill some confidence, then maybe he stays in the race. But if Biden stumbles in any of those appearances, then I think next week is the critical time when you will see, not publicly, but privately, the pressure build on him to leave gracefully for the sake of America, given the threat of Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump claims President Biden is quitting and believes he'll face Kamala Harris at the US election. In a video posted to social media, the former president can be seen in a golf buggy speaking to an unidentified person. Despite the White House insisting President Biden will remain in the race, Mr. Trump can be heard saying they've just announced he's quitting, though it's unclear what the claim is based on.
Quitting the race. Is that right? Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. But can you imagine that guy dealing with Putin and the president of China, who's a fierce person? He's a fierce man, a very tough guy. And they see him, they can't. But they just announced he's probably quitting. Good. Very good. Yeah,
the Prince and Princess of Wales are understood to be donating to Hurricane Beryl relief efforts after the storm tore through islands in the southeast Caribbean. At least 6 people are known to have been killed in Grenada, Venezuela, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The storm was expected to be close to major hurricane strength when it passed over Jamaica yesterday. It's heading towards the Cayman Islands today and into Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. And police in Australia have recovered the remains of a 12-year-old girl who was attacked by a crocodile while swimming in a creek in a remote part of the country. The unnamed child was reported missing on Tuesday. She'd been swimming with family in Mango Creek, around 225 miles from Darwin in the Northern Territory. The area is home to around 100,000 saltwater crocodiles, which is more than anywhere else in the world, though attacks on people are not common. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner. We'll be crossing to Bev shortly at the Henley Regatta, where she's talking to the greatest Olympian, in my view, of all time, Sir Steve Redgrave, who knows the thing about rowing because he won 5 gold medals at 5 consecutive Olympic Games. But let's see what you've been saying first. A lot of you, as I thought, would be very exercised by Joe Biden. Debbie says, surely the fact Joe Biden was judged unfit to give evidence at his son's trial is a sign he can't run for president. Anthony says, Kamala Harris, that's the vice president, of course, would be destroyed by Trump, as all she can do when asked a question is laugh stupidly. Paul says this, Biden's way too old. That's not hair on his head, it's mould. Paul, that's very unkind, but it did make me laugh. And Jenny says, Biden has to go. I go with a Machiavellian theory that they set him up on that debate to give him time to dump him. The theory, it came out at the weekend, actually, that President Obama, they still call the former president, but Obama was the key figure in moving that presidential debate early. Normally it would have been closer to the Democrat convention in August, but it happened, as you know, last week because he wanted to expose the shortcomings of Biden so they'd have time to get rid of him and time to have a more orderly handover at that August convention. But of course, he's not going quietly, and they never do. Now, we're going to go next to Henley Regatta, where Bev Turner has somebody rather interesting in store. Bev.
Thank you, Andrew. That's right, the action continues here at Henley Regatta, and it wouldn't be Henley Regatta without Sir Steve Redgrave, who has very kindly joined us this morning on Britain's Newsroom. You're looking very relaxed here, Steve. Is it very different now that you can just be here in a relaxed capacity rather than racing?
As you can see from my tie, it's quite windy today, but problems with outdoor sports is that, yeah, pretty relaxed. Is that for me as chair, it's the preparation and getting everything ready in time. The amount of entries we've had, our biggest ever entry, biggest overseas entry, of getting them through all qualifiers, and then there's a very short time from qualifiers finishing to getting the draw done, programming, and that once all that's done, then I can relax a little bit and just deal with little problems, hopefully minor problems that happen during the week itself.
Rowing's quite unusual, isn't it, as a sport, in that the athletes who retire from it, like you and Sir Matt Pinsent, who's also here, I presume, this weekend, stay involved and help to give back to the sport. Why do you do that?
There's no money in the sport. The Olympic rules changed after the '88 games that we could have received prize money, appearance money and stuff like that, but there's still not money in the sport. And I think that once you get sucked into the sport, you do it because you love it. You've got so much out of it yourself, so being able to help other people on their path through, and especially here at Henley, of the colour, the history, the atmosphere here is just special to be involved in.
How many people are behind the scenes organising?
Thousands.
Thousands. And from when? When does it start?
We have a full-time staff team of 14, and they're working on it all year round. That's bigger staff than World Rowing has to organise the whole of World Rowing, and we're just one event. And then as it gets nearer, more and more people are brought in on professional side, but the volunteers start ramping up as well. And without the volunteers, we just wouldn't be able to run the event.
Yeah. It's not televised as such, is it? Even though it's sort of similar, you might say, to Wimbledon, maybe. But that's a deliberate sort of decision to keep it sort of go on answer that, Steve, diplomatically.
Well, we started broadcasting about 10 years ago, and when you're filming anything on water, it's triply, quadruple more expensive. Athletics, tennis, if you go to snooker or darts, in some ways it's almost designed for TV, where rowing's not. So you need of 2 or 3 times the amount of cameras to be able to do it any justice at all. The drone has been a game changer for us, and some of the shots that we get for the drone is amazing. As technology moves on, as you've seen through sailing, of the things that have been changing there on the way that's publicised. But it's also sort of trying to capture the imagination. Olympics, everyone expects the British team to do well, and they will do well in 3 weeks' time at the Paris Olympics. And that people don't really realise that there's rowing events happening every day. So not every day, every weekend of the year, with 3 or 4 events happening sometimes on a weekend. There's events out there, and people have said to me, especially around London 2012, "Oh, why isn't there more rowing? It's fantastic. It's really exciting." And I said the BBC have been showing the World Championships every year since 1981. People don't watch it, so you've got to capture the imagination of people.
And you've got it on YouTube YouTube now, though, don't you? You broadcast the races live with the drones.
We've got our own YouTube channel, and it's free to air, so anybody can watch it, and our viewing figures are pretty good on that. And so you've got people that may have rode in their younger days, are still working on the first few days, and will be watching it as it unfolds, and then coming out at the weekend. And then some people are here in the deck chairs, sitting on the front of the water, watching every race come up. So but it's the colour, it's the atmosphere. That's why it's so different here.
It is so different, and it is so different. We've been saying it all morning. It's socialising is such a big part of this event. You've got people tootling up and down the river, having picnics in the PIMS tents up and down, and afternoon tea is a big event here. But for the athletes, with 3 weeks until the Olympics, it must feel like a super focus has to be applied to a weekend like this. What is this going to tell us this weekend about how we might do at the Olympics with the British teams?
Very little.
Really?
Because it's so close, literally 3 weeks away. The British team and most of the national teams are away doing their final preparations. So the men's team are up at high altitude. The women are in Italy, warm weather training, totally focused on Paris, and then rightly so. If the Olympics were slightly later, then they would be racing here. And that was the problem that when I was racing as well. Sometimes we could do it, most of the time that we couldn't in Olympic year. We have 8 athletes that are racing that are going on to Paris. Oliver Zeidler, the German single scull world champion. So his preparations is to come here and race. He'll really enjoy this wind. He's from your background. He was a swimmer to start with, and then came of rowing. His mother was a rower, his father was a swimmer, and because he came to rowing relatively late, he loves the rough water. Or he doesn't love it, he hates it, but he needs the rough water practice, and that's why he likes coming here. So this is his final preparation. If it is windy in Paris, he feels that he'll get a bonus of being here.
Brilliant. Well, it is a little windy up here, Steve, but still an absolutely beautiful day. We've got various crews going out already. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much for talking to us.
Good
to see you. Right, Andrew, back to you.
Thanks, Bev. Always interesting and always great to hear Sir Steve Redgrave. I sat next to him at a dinner once. I felt very privileged and in awe. How can anybody win 5 gold medals over 20 years? Now, an interesting story for lots of people, particularly who take that wonder drug, Ozempic. This is the weight loss jab, but according to a new scientific study, it could cause irreversible optic nerve damage and even cause blindness. Well, I'm joined now by the Health and Social Affairs editor at the Sunday Express, Lucy Johnson. Lucy, morning to you. I know some people who are on that drug and they swear by it. Some of them have lost 3 or 4 stone. And I often say to them, but do you know if there are any side effects? Does it now seem we are beginning to discover there are, and they may be rather negative?
Absolutely. So the drug, when you are doing clinical trials, carefully controlled clinical trials, you don't always pick up danger signals. And when drugs are rolled out over a broader population, over a longer term, signals then become apparent. And we've already had with this drug an increased risk that we've seen with something called pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas, which can be deadly. We've also seen an increase in bowel problems. And in fact, 1 in people in the very studies that brought this drug onto market stopped taking the drug because of side effects. So all drugs carry side effects. And the key is for doctors, clinicians to work out whether the side effects are worth it in terms of the benefits that you're getting. And now this drug is being used for weight loss. More people are getting it, and that we have people going online pharmacies that are giving out. Sometimes they cheat the system and maybe lie about their BMI because they want to be thin, and they're bypassing the doctors, and doctors really should make clinical decisions about whether people should be on these drugs. This new signal about blindness, it is from a study at an eye hospital, so that may skew the results because they're more likely to see rare eye conditions. But it did show an alarming sign that people with diabetes or who are overweight are more likely to develop this eye condition if they're on the drug than if they aren't. And the regulators should be right on this and should be looking it up and following it up, because people, need to know their risks of all things when they're taking drugs. They need to make an informed choice.
Because, Lucy, when people go to the doctor and say, I want this drug, a doctor isn't necessarily going to say, yes, you're the right person for it, because they do make clinical decisions. So it's alarming to think that people can just get these drugs from an online pharmacy who just perhaps wants the money and isn't going to ask the questions that a doctor would ask.
Absolutely. And when we're thinking about weight loss, quick fixes and drugs are not always the solution. What we really should be looking at, once you're off those drugs, or if they don't work for you, many people don't lose a lot of weight on them. Once you're off the drug, the weight loss, the weight comes back. So what we really ought to be looking at is our toxic food environment. We need to, if you need to lose weight, the best way to do it is to eat less, get out there, exercise. If you're diabetic and your risk of your disease or obesity, the complications from obesity are so high, it may be worth being on that drug. But for many people, for using a drug to lose weight, really think about how you can change your lifestyle so that you can lose weight in a natural way without the side effects. And I think public health messaging does need to come in here. We need to change our, the aisles of the supermarkets are full of ultra processed foods, aren't they? And you've got more aisles of alcohol than you have of fresh fruit and vegetables sometimes. So we really need to think about what we're doing in our society and what we're eating and drinking to tackle problems like weight and diabetes, because that is a large part of the problem.
All right, very sound advice as ever. That's Lucy Johnson, who is the Health and Social Affairs Editor at the Sunday Express. Lucy, thanks for joining us. I have a statement here from Novo Nordisk, which makes Wegovy and Ozempic, and they said there were limitations to the study, which was done by these scientists, adding, patient safety is a top priority for us, and we take all reports about adverse events from use of our medicines very seriously. Neon, which is this condition that affects the eye, is not listed as a known adverse drug reaction in the summary of product characteristics for the marketed formulations of Semoltide for type 2 diabetes and Wegovy for weight management, as per the approved labels. Well, if they think that statement helps, they could have perhaps put it in English. Up next, the phrase mixed weight relationships, I said weight, not race, mixed weight relationships, has triggered a huge backlash, and it's all connected to that big drama, which I've never watched, but I know is very popular, Bridgeton. I want to know what you think. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere. Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Question is...
should our museums stay free for everyone and anyone, or should we be charging our tourists?
So many of the artefacts are from around the world, stolen actually. I think it's almost to add insult to injury to ask people to pay to see the artefacts that were taken without their permission. One of the things that the museum set itself up for is a kind of World Heritage where you can see the stuff they took from your country free of charge, because the British state's willing to do that, is one of the reasons why we hold on to many of the artefacts from around the world instead of giving them back.
I mean, that's a noble argument, Wayman, but none of the other countries in the world that also contain artefacts from all over the world indulge in that, do they? We still have to pay to see anything that's come from the UK that might be overseas?
No, but the absolute truth is that we've stolen a lot more over many more years than anybody else, because we're we had a very, very big empire, and during that time, taking things from other countries without their permission
And I think our wonderful country, the United Kingdom, is the cradle of modern civilization, not of the ancient world, but of the modern world. You know, for centuries, we've contributed things to the world which has spread out around the world, and the influence that we've put upon countries around the globe has been massively significant. I think it's a privilege for people to be able to come to this country and track the history of our country through our museums. I can't understand why they've ever been free. The upkeep of museums runs into hundreds of millions of pounds a year. Somebody's got to maintain them and keep them good. Somebody's got to go around the world and collect the artifacts which are in our museums. And I've always had the adage in life, if something is free, it's probably not worth having.
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hooray!
11:23, this is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, who is in Henley for the regatta. Now, this is a story that caught my eye. Bridgeton's Penelope, played by Nicola Coughlan, is in a huge Twitter storm about the phrased mixed-weight relationship, which was referred to in the upmarket magazine Forbes. Joining me now is GB News showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecci. Stephanie, tell us more. They are not the conventional romantic couple in the sense that Colin Bridgerton is tall, dark and very Heathcliff-like and handsome, and Penelope Featherington, played by Nicola Coughlan, is a woman of, shall we say, a wide girth.
Yeah, she is. She's very voluptuous, lovely woman, beautiful actress. But since season 3 started of Bridgerton, Andrew, there's been a lot of body shamers who've been saying, you know what, she's too fat. And as we know, Bridgerton, it has a lot of sex scenes in it. So Nicola came out and said, you know what, I'm tired of being body shamed. Can you stop body shaming me? It's all about the role. And she, because of these body shamers, she insisted on doing lots of nude scenes in this season, which a lot of Bridgerton fans will see. So now there's been this opinion piece in Forbes written by a writer called Virgie Tova, who has now commented and said that basically, is the world ready for a mixed weight relationship? I've never seen or heard anything so ridiculous in my life, Andrew. We're in 2024. We've seen it all. We've seen it all on TV and we've seen it all on screen. This writer considers herself an expert on weight bias. So she, in her article, in her defense, she does talk about the body shame that Nicola has gone through, but she says, is the world ready to see a plus-size woman with a man who's slim? I'm sorry, there's no couples out there. We're all in mixed weight relationships then, because how do you get a couple who's going to be the same? And even though this writer herself is plus-size, she's reinforced the body shaming that Nicola has said, stop concentrating on my body, concentrate on the work. So as you can imagine, online is having a field day with this, you know, because it's ridiculous. We have to deal with so many labels. Now we're going to look at the world of mixed weight relationships.
Stephanie told beautifully. Stephanie Tecci, our GB News showbiz reporter. Mike Parry and Jonathan Lister in the studio with me. Mike, I'm obviously going to come to you first. Right. I just want you to refer to mixed weight. You would be the first to admit, Mike, you're not the slimmest member of the male species. Well, you had mixed weight relationships?
Well, you're fat-shaming me now, Andrew, you see, and I find that very extraordinary. Remember, I haven't been this shape all my life. No. I was, you know, as you've said many times on this show before, I was a babe magnet when I was middle-aged, so I knew about that.
You're still middle-aged,
I'm sorry?
You're still middle-aged.
Early middle-age, absolutely. I am not the best to ask about this because I've never seen an episode of Bridgerton, OK? And I had a conversation with a female colleague the other night who had never seen an episode of Peaky Blinders. Oh. So I think this is a very male-female type thing, you know, on your television viewing. Right. All I can say is I think it's outrageous to fat-shame a woman because of the shape she is, and that every woman that I've ever, you know, looked at and come across has got their own values. I love women and they're all attractive to me.
Have you had a mixed-weight relationship in your time, Jonathan?
Andrew, as you may know,
the gay community is quite body conscious, and there is an issue about body shaming in that community. But on the other side, there are lots of different looks in that community. So you go into a gay club and you do see a lot of people who look like male models and personal trainers. But you also have, venues that are designed for bigger guys, bears, for example, or sort of daddies, they might be called, all kinds of things. So the long and the short of it is, there is someone for everyone. I've been with very slim guys, and bigger guys, not too many, obviously. My mother's watching this. Yes, it's... I have been in mixed rate relationships.
Right, OK.
To answer your question.
Interesting. I think I've never even heard the expression mixed weight.
No,
it's very silly. It's very silly. Basically, it means a slim person and a less slim person.
But is it the end of the world? No, it isn't.
But I do know some chaps who are heterosexual who've threatened to leave their girlfriends because they put too much weight on. That's happened a number of times that I've experienced.
And normally those guys are bigger than their girlfriends.
They've got the beer bellies.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Captain Tom. Look, this is an extraordinary story.
It is.
We all loved Captain Tom. He got his gong from the Queen, his knighthood. We lost him at the age of 100. He was a great inspirational figure. His daughter set up that foundation in her name, but it seems to have been beset by controversy after controversy. Now banned from being a charity trustee for a decade. How did it all go so horribly wrong?
Well, I think she's been treated rather harshly, and I'll tell you why. Because every time Captain Tom came on the television, and it could be 3 or 4 times a day, she was sitting next to him. So she actually organised the Captain Tom phenomenon. Remember, Captain Tom started walking around his garden 100 times to raise 500 quid or something like that. She then suddenly became in charge of a £40 million fortune, OK? And anybody who was suddenly told to organise that money, how it's come in, what you do with it, I think would be out of their depth, OK? She took £800,000 in proceeds from the 3 books her father wrote. What is wrong with that? He wrote the books, he got the money, why couldn't he have passed that down to his daughter?
In the preface, he said this is an opportunity to raise even more money for charity.
He did say.
So that's an expectation when you're buying the book, that's going to go to charity, not into his daughter's pocket.
No, but do you not think the daughter deserves some reward for all the effort she put into the Captain Law Fund?
It's not illegal, but it's unethical.
But 800,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money.
Does she deserve it? She was being paid, what, £150,000?
No, she wasn't, because she was banned from drawing a salary.
Let her take 100,000.
She wanted to.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, but she was banned from doing it. I'm saying is she deserved some reward.
But not 800,000, Mike.
Well, what I'm saying is that was Captain Tom's money. He'd already given 40 million to the country that he'd raised for charity, OK? And I think it was a bit harsh. I think she should have said, look, can I have something out of it? I've worked so hard on this. There was the scandal about the building, the spa.
But then they shouldn't have said it in the first place. In the book, they shouldn't have mentioned the fact that it was charity.
What I'm saying is she wasn't responsible for the forward in the book. That was her father. And I think she should have been given some reward for the joy that Captain Tom brought to the world.
She was organising it. She wasn't fine. She wasn't paid over 100, but she was paid something because that was her job.
She was only paid expenses.
They made a very healthy living.
I think she's been treated very roughly, and she's been branded a crook now, almost.
There was evidence that the company she was running with her husband were in some financial difficulty. And so the criticism here, Jonathan, is that she used some of the money coming into the father's, which people thought was going to the father's foundation, perhaps to get herself out of financial.
I think she gave an interview herself that said, they were looking at how can we make ends meet, and then she had the idea for her father to do the rings. Now, no one's suggesting that money didn't all go to the NHS. That's not in question. But clearly there are questions about how they went from being, looking in the financial precipice to sort of, coining it in. And people have very legitimate questions. Now, obviously, the Charity Commission hasn't concluded its investigation. It's a complex investigation, but it has decided to ban them from being trustees. They wouldn't have done that lightly, and that suggests to me that something's
But
wrong.
I think that's because of the size of money involved, you see. It started with a few hundred quid, that was the idea, and then it became 40 million. I mean, interest alone on that is a couple of million a year. So somebody had to take control of it. She must have made mistakes in the administration of the money, and I think because it's 40 million, because it's Captain Tom, she has been treated more harshly than somebody else might have been.
Because it's Captain Tom. Captain Tom was a national hero, if anything. It's
I know, and therefore, if the Charity Commission concluded she's done something wrong about Captain Tom's reputation, she has to be treated harshly.
I think the whole thing is such a shame, because that was obviously such the feel-good story. It was seen to be apolitical.
It was,
the Ingram Wars are Conservatives, but it was a non-political story. and it's just been tarnished, and it's just a real shame.
It is. Gentlemen, we've run out of time, I'm afraid. That's Mike Parry and Jonathan Liss. We're going to the news headlines now with Sophia Ingram.
Andrew, thank you. It's 11:32. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. First, to breaking news. A woman has admitted murdering her parents in June 2019. The bodies of John and Lois McCulloch were discovered by police at the 36-year-old's house after concerns were raised over their welfare. Virginia McCulloch appeared at today's hearing via video link from HMP Peterborough and was remanded in custody. Polls are open across Britain as millions of people cast their votes to choose the next government. The first voters were up bright and early as stations opened their doors at 7 o'clock this morning. They'll remain open until 10 o'clock tonight, giving a chance to around 46 million eligible voters to have their say on who forms Britain's next government. A total of 650 parliamentary constituencies are being contested across the UK. But this is the first general election to require photo ID, and voters are being reminded to bring their driver's licence, passport or other ID, or risk being turned away. Forensic police in Tenerife are focusing their efforts on an Airbnb property where missing teenager Jay Slater reportedly stayed before he vanished. It comes after one of the last people to see the 18-year-old insisted he was alive and well when he left his holiday rental to catch a bus back to his own accommodation. Police have described the individual as irrelevant to the ongoing investigation. In the US, state governors who met with President Biden last night say he's fit for office and he has their backing. The president faced a grilling at the meeting of Democratic governors, which many saw as a test of his ongoing support within the party. And the Prince and Princess of Wales are understood to be donating to Hurricane Beryl relief efforts after the storm tore through islands in the southeast Caribbean. At least 6 people are known to have been killed by the storm, which is now heading towards the Cayman Islands and into Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler. More in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pounds will buy you $1.2753 and €1.1813. The price of gold is £1,847.80 per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,226 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Up at noon, good afternoon, Britain. It's with Ben Leo today and Emily. Now, what's coming up on this politics-free show?
It is. Ben Leo is keeping me company. Of course, the polling stations are open. We want pictures of dogs at the polling station. I've got one of my dog already to share with everyone.
I didn't know you had a dog.
A family dog.
Okay.
I'm not its main carer.
OK.
But I do look after him time to time. But we also want pictures. I don't know, perhaps you bring your cat or your ferret or even your hamster to the polling station with you.
I've seen a few cat pictures. So any animals?
Any animals, please send them in. We want to see them. We can't talk about the politics, but we can talk about the polling stations.
On a lead?
Yeah, well, you know, people are strange.
I've had cats for 30 years. I've never put a cat on a lead.
Why don't you take the cat to the polling station and take a pic for us? Otherwise, big week for sports.
Big weekend for sport, yeah. Perhaps the biggest in the calendar. So we've got the British Grand Prix on Sunday. Wimbledon, of course, is on. Rory.
Raducanu.
Have you been yet?
Me?
Yeah.
To Wimbledon?
Tatiana had gone.
I went a few years ago, but no, I have no tickets for this year.
Andrew?
I was invited yesterday, but because of things, stuff that's going on, we're not talking about today, I didn't go, which is a pity because I'd like to have seen Emma Raducanu because she's very
Raducanu, great start.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, you've got the Murray boys on the centre court. So that's going to be very emotional.
Sadly, Andy's my hero. And when he first won Wimbledon in 2013, I cried tears of happiness. Happy to admit it. Unfortunately, he's not playing singles, of course. But Katie Bolter, the young Brit, she's on centre court today.
Right.
And yeah, British Grand Prix, as I've mentioned. What else is there?
Mark Cavendish, we want to talk about him. Tour de France.
Set a record.
Yes, pretty amazing, actually, how he's managed to do that. 14th time, 15th time he's done the race, which is pretty extraordinary. What else? We're also going to be checking in with Bev. At the Henley Regatta, which is rather nice.
She's in her element.
I bet are you missing her tons, Andrew?
Desperately. Can't
feeling lonely in the studio.
Yeah, really lonely, really.
But it's a very big table now, isn't it, to sit on your own?
You have to find out when she has her first glass of bubbles, because I suspect it'll be before this programme ends.
Oh, do you suspect?
I do. She may have already had one already.
Perhaps she'll have a little Bucks fizz at least.
Yeah.
Well, she'll be live with us, won't she? So we can tell.
And, of course, we're going to be discussing a little bit of US politics and a little bit of this, the Bridgeton stuff that you were talking about.
I just love it. Mixed weight drummers. And what a great expression. I wish I'd thought of it. Because it's fantastic, isn't it?
I think you always see mixed weight couples. It's nothing absurd. And also these rugby girls who were getting into their lingerie. Is that progressive or regressive?
All that and more at midday. We're going back to Bev in Henley, of course, very shortly. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It's going to be a breezy day, especially across the northwest, but there will be some sunnier spells across the south. However, to the north, where that windier weather is through the day, we've also got an occluded front, and that's going to bring some persistent heavy rain and showers, particularly to western areas of Scotland, but also into some northwestern areas of England and parts of Northern Ireland as well. Elsewhere, we should stay dry through the rest of the day. Mix of sunny spells, the longest lived sunshine likely across southeastern areas where the winds will be the lightest this afternoon, so highs of around 21 degrees here, but further north and west closer to the lower teens, so a fairly fresh feeling day, and some of those showers could turn quite heavy and possibly thundery. The winds will be particularly strong through this afternoon across western areas of Scotland. We could see gale force gusts and some very heavy bursts of rain. Down in towards parts of Northern Ireland, less of a risk of the heavier showers, but a mix of sunny spells and showers, and still pretty breezy here into this afternoon. The winds will slowly start to ease as we head into the evening further south. However, the next batch of rain is arriving from the west, so skies will cloud over across parts of South Wales and southwestern areas of England. And this is the next front arriving for Thursday and into Thursday evening and into Friday. It will bring quite a lot of wet weather to many central and southern areas of England and Wales. Further north, a continued risk of some heavy showers overnight. There will still be some clearer skies for some parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. Here, temperatures could dip down into the lower single figures for some of us, but most of us, it will be a fairly mild start to the day. And as I said, it's going to be a damper day for southern and central areas. The rain will likely come and go. There could be a drier spell through the middle of the day, but we will see the return of that rain from the south and west once again into the evening. But in any sunshine, temperatures climbing to around 21 degrees, but for most of us, a little below par for the time of year.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner. I'm in the studio, but still to come, Bev is at the Royal Regatta at Henley. She's talking to various people, and I was asking earlier, wonder when she'll have her first glass of bubbles or Bucks Fizz or champagne. I'm told she'd already had it. She's already had a glass. But is it too early? When's it too early to have a glass of bubbles? Probably never too early. She was talking earlier, of course, to Britain's arguably greatest sportsman. That's a debate for another day. Sir Stephen Redgrave, who won gold medals at 5 consecutive Olympic Games, of course, as a rower. So he is a key figure at Henley. The sun is shining. We're not doing politics, of course, today because it is the general election. So we are talking anything but politics. And unusually for me, I've had to talk about sport quite a lot because it is a huge day today. If you're a Wimbledon fan, which I am, Andy Murray is going to be going onto the centre court, potentially for the last time with his brother Jamie. They're going to be playing in the doubles. As we were hearing from Paul Coyte earlier, this is an exception because a doubles match would normally be played on an outer court, but he is Britain's darling, isn't he? And Sir Andy Murray. And we're going to read some emails, and the people are still talking about Joe Biden. I actually think it's a shame. It's shaming on the Democratic Party in the United States, because if this is a pattern of behaviour by Joe Biden, who completely lost his way in that debate, it's been covered up. And Barbara says, I'm afraid our only hope to protect the people of the West is Donald Trump. And John says, Biden's a basket case. No, it's the Democrat Party, it's the basket case if they've allowed this charade to go on. Let's go now to Henley, where I'm told Beverly Turner is now drank that glass of champagne. Your secret is out, Beverly. There we are, half drunk. And notice there's no orange juice in it. It's the real McCoy. Enjoy.
It is. It's Henley Regatta. I mean, it's touching midday, almost, Andrew. I just want to also just say thank you to Millie, who's in the boat, whose family have lent us the boat this morning. Thank you, Millie. And we have producer Eleanor in the back. And my mother. I brought my mother. So we're going to be talking to my mum in just a little while. But I'm also going to talk now to our skipper, Ed China. You will know Ed, of course, famous for Wheeler Dealers and has a YouTube channel doing all sorts of shenanigans with cars, Ed. We're used to seeing you normally behind the wheel of various crazy vehicles. We were talking earlier, people who are tuning in, that you have multiple world records, don't you, for your bizarre vehicles?
Yes, well, it all started with the sofa, the world's fastest bit of furniture, 87 miles an hour, and then moved on to the world's fastest bed, world's fastest bathroom. We've got the world's fastest office, world's largest motorised shopping trolley. The list is almost endless. I think the last one was the world's fastest all-electric ice cream van.
And these are, when we say the world's fastest, they have the workings of a vehicle, of a car beneath them, and then on top of that. Now, I have been in your bed, Ed China. I've been in the world's fastest bed. I think we might have a picture of the bed to show people, and that is roadworthy. It has a tax disc.
Yeah, it's taxed, MOT'd, insured, so you can drive anyway, even on motorways. So it's fantastic fun. And as long as the weather's like this, if it's raining, you're not quite so cool.
And when you're driving along in your bed, do people just wave and beep their horns the whole time?
Yeah, it's really lovely. It's a really kind of like a Pied Piper effect, actually. It's one of the things. When I first noticed with the sofa, we used to drive around London a lot just to show off, really, or just to have it's his spiritual home. It's called It's just a really wonderful thing because people just get taken out of their daily lives and then just suddenly it's just this bit of surreal thing. But what's even lovelier is people are actually sort of looking around to make sure they're not going completely crazy, because of course it's a surreal experience, I think.
Now, we can hear the crowd starting to cheer in the background. So basically the way they divide the river on this week, Tuesday to Sunday's Henley Regatta, is they build these courses, don't they, down the middle. So on this side of the river, we've got the likes of us drinking champagne and having a lovely time and trying not to run over the rowers, because the rowers are also on their way back up this direction to the start of the river, which is over there. And so, as we can see here, we've got a race going on, Ed. It's a really interesting group, isn't it? A really interesting kind of melding of these two worlds.
Absolutely, and I think, as you say, because this is a proper, full-on, super-duper athlete, and so it's an athletic thing. It's a lot of prowess here, but then equally there's sort of a lot of sociable madness as well, and people getting a little tipsy on the water, which is perfect at Henley, frankly. So no, it's a wonderful thing. But,
we should explain to people who might be thinking, why is Ed China at Henley Regatta? This is because you live on the river. Yes. You and your wife chose to live in Henley. Why Henley?
I think it was one of those things, I guess, we were sort of looking around for places, and there's just something about the madness in the air here. There's an eccentricity, I suppose, and also this sort of idea that people are just very different, I think. And then also there's all the creativity of all the events that go on and stuff. It just felt right, you know, somehow just the vibe was perfect.
Yeah. What are you working on at the moment, Ed? Are you building any more crazy cars?
I am. Well, I've just bought a sort of amphibious bus. We're going to turn into an RV. I'm going to go on a bit of a tour. We're sort of now looking for sort of partners, you know, for that as an idea for our YouTube show. So we're going to do basically 1 million seconds. How far can I drive in 1 million seconds? That's the idea. And it's about 10,000 kilometres probably. So we're going to go to the base, do a lot of Scandinavia because Imogen's stuck out there at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be fantastic fun, I think.
Amazing. And we just have a little wave to our fellow guests here at Henley Regatta this morning. Honestly, this is the way to live, isn't it? It really is a fascinating weekend here in Henley. Andrew, I think, I said it before, but I think you would be incredibly at home here. We are going to be, my mother's looking very nervous in the background. Can I just tell you, your mum never switches off, does she? As every time a big boat came in the background, I could see her going, be careful, be careful, be careful. I'm fine, Mother, I'm fine. Right, listen, quick break, don't go anywhere. See you in a minute.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The Royal Academy's annual exhibition has returned for the 256th time to brighten the summer holidays. It's the world's oldest open submission exhibition. Anyone can enter work to be considered for inclusion. I'm joined now by art critic J.J. Charlesworth for his verdict. What is your verdict?
My verdict is you should go and see it. You are confronted with many things of varying quality, selected by artists, and you very much, instead of being given something to you that's supposed to be good, you have to make your own decision.
I went along yesterday, and I personally did see some pictures on the wall that I thought were absolutely stunning. I'm going to mention Peter Ucker, which I think is a remark. And now these are the two by Ben Jonson, Grundtvig 1, and we've got one coming out of Berlin Pool. I think that's an absolutely stunning piece of work. And then Claire Douglas should be up. Here we are, Claire Douglas.
Yes.
Souvenir from the Anthropocene.
Yeah.
That last one, actually, a very witty painting.
A piece like that was really interesting. I think it caught a lot of people's eyes because it had very kind of humorous, slightly bleak take on post-Brexit Britain. It's set in this fictitious world of Brummington, which is a sort of loose satire on Birmingham. I thought it was a bit mean.
I think we had maybe Black Lives Matter. We had Boris Johnson. I think our own Jacob Rees-Mogg made his way into the painting.
Yeah, so there's definitely a slant, a political slant, on the part of the artist. But even that said, I thought it was an interesting and enjoyable work, even though maybe you don't agree with the artist on what they're trying to say. And I think that actually made for an interesting moment because you're seeing that people are disagreeing, right? Both through the artwork and in front of artworks.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I think it was like what you were telling me earlier, just the fact that
We are here at Henley Royal Regatta. What a beautiful, beautiful day for it. Obviously, it's a different Britain's newsroom today. No politics. It's a bit of a relief, I can't lie. And this is certainly a relief being here on the river. We've got all of the rowers taking it very seriously. And then we've got the people here taking it a little less seriously, drinking a little champagne, enjoying the atmosphere. And my mother has muscled in on the occasion today. Well, no, let me put that differently. Mum, you've lived here now for 10 years, pretty much full time, from Manchester. Why did you choose Henley-on-Thames?
Because my 3 children left home and left me in the north. So we had to sell our house and move south. We were coming up and down every weekend with 7 grandchildren. Thought, you know, it's time to throw in the towel and join them. So here we are in this lovely place. Very, very lucky. Had to work many, many years. We were 80 when my husband left and 70 when I left. And so here we are 10 years later. But why would you not be? I mean, we're just so lucky.
Yeah. You love GB News as well, don't you, Mum? I'm just going to say that now. It's not just me.
No, I do like GB News. It's honest. Yes, I had to think hard, didn't I? No, I think it's a superb programme. It's one of those programmes that, sadly, you have to have adverts, but it really does cover every subject, and it's truthful. Good, bad, ugly. It's fine.
What about my co-presenter, Mum? Are you a fan of Andrew Pearce?
I love Andrew Pearce. I think he really makes your programme. I think it's wonderful. Somebody has to be sensible on your programme.
Right, OK, I'd love to see Andrew's face right now. I wish I could see his face. But the other thing, Mum, we were saying about this weekend is all these athletes here. Rowing is a really tough sport. We were a family of swimmers. You still coach in Henley now. And Adi, my younger brother, went to the Olympics in Athens. So you know a bit what it's like for the parents here this weekend. It's nerve-wracking, isn't it, when your kids are in a sport?
It's extremely difficult. It really is difficult on your life is taken over by sport. I think the hard part, if you know, in the south, you do have more opportunities. Apart from the north, does have more swimming pools. So, you know, it's just such stress on people. The people here now have probably travelled miles and miles and really put themselves under horrible pressure. And then the poor kids here are having to return the goods and make it...
Poor kids, poor kids. You used to make us swim twice a day. Don't now come out over all sympathetic to them. You used to force me to go swimming when I didn't want to go. But it was worth it. It's what kids need, isn't it? Is activities and sport and being occupied.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's too many phones, too many screens. Come on, let's get on with it. We've got to get them out. They've had 2 years with this damn... 3 years, COVID, locked up. We want them out. And you know, I notice in swimming that in actual fact, children who are now 9 really can't swim very well.
Yeah.
Because they've been locked up for 3 years.
Mum, don't get political. We've done very well not to get political. Anyway, you can see where I get it from, can't you, Andrew? Can't you see where I get it from?
Certainly can. And that was a nice surprise, Bev, your mum saying she loved me. If only you did.
Well, we're getting there. Like I said, we're like a couple who stayed together for the sake of the kids. We're starting to, you know, rub along nicely now. But honestly, we've had a great time here, Andrew, this morning. And actually, I would have loved you to have been here. You'd have absolutely loved this. We'll be back tomorrow.
We certainly will. Bev, well done. Bev is going to be there at Henley throughout the day, so you'll hear more from her and see more from her, and possibly her mum too. And I suspect by 5 o'clock she'd have drank the entire bottle of champagne, if I know Bev Turner. Well, that...
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It's going to be a breezy day, especially across the northwest, but there will be some sunnier spells across the south. However, to the north, where that windier weather is through the day, we've also got an occluded front, and that's going to bring some persistent heavy rain and showers, particularly to western areas of Scotland, but also into some northwestern areas of England and parts of Northern Ireland as well. Elsewhere, we should stay dry through the rest of the day. Mix of sunny spells, the longest lived sunshine likely across southeastern areas where the winds will be the lightest this afternoon, so highs of around 21 degrees here, but further north and west closer to